Hello, everyone. My name is David Reed. I apologize for the delay. We had some sound issues. I guess that's just how these things work. We're going to figure it out. We started on time, 5 minutes before the top of the hour, and everyone could hear me and Darren talking. And it's like, this isn't right. I'm on mute. I don't know how's this supposed to work. So I dropped an S-bomb. So hopefully you won't be hearing that copy. Welcome. I'm so glad to have you. My name is David Reed, and I am the longtime co-editor of GateWorld.net. I am back with the band now because I wanted to launch this new project with my old business partner, Darren Sumner. And this is going to be what I hope to be my legacy in terms of my relationship with this franchise, my relationship with Darren, and the hundreds of cast and crew that we've been privileged to know over the years. So thank you so much for joining us. And I want to be clear that this first episode is going to be crazy. You're going to watch me fall on my butt, and that's just how it is. So we're figuring this technology out together. So please forgive me for that with the tech. The other thing, and this goes for the entire run of this show, I am a loudmouth, and I apologize. I am a boisterous laugher, and I am grating and everything else, as Darren will tell you. So up front for that, I make no bones about it, but I do apologize. So the opening music was created by Mr. Neal Acree, who is the last surviving composer of all three Stargate shows. He and Joel did every series, and I am privileged to have him with us. It feels like there's some real Stargate DNA as part of this show. So that was, it was like Christmas morning when I got the music. So the opening theme was created by him. The closing credits at the end of the show, he also created, and it really feels like it is Stargate for all intents and purposes. You know, he told me last night, he says, the best Stargate music I've made in years. So that made me laugh. So let's get into this. So the show is going to have, the meat of the show will be the confirmed guests. We have 30 confirmed Stargate guests for the remainder of the year and January. So actors, the crew and actors, it's like herding cats because with this schedule, so there will be schedule shifts. You're going to want to subscribe and click the bell icon in the event that there's a last minute schedule change. These talent are working, and this is a good thing. I was not expecting them to be working now, and we've got some intel on some projects that I can't even talk about yet that I'm extremely excited about. But we're waiting for agents to clear a lot of this stuff with us, and they're not getting back to my email. A couple of them are not responding to the things that we want to talk about, like, can we publish this news story? This is tremendous. This is a big show. And I'm not getting any responses, which says to me that they don't have permission yet. So we're going to keep a couple of these things in the bag for now. But we'll talk about them as the show progresses. The last thing before I want to get into the run of show is congratulations to Sue-Ann Braun for a wonderful season 1. She and Amanda Tapping, I believe that they may be still talking, but I believe they just wrapped on season 1 of Hathor Hosts, which you can check out on YouTube. I totally recommend it. So congrats, Sue-Ann, for that. So let's get over to the structure of a typical Dial the Gate show, at least what it's intended to be. So introductions I've already made. Any upfront notes that you need to have are going to be given to you at that point. Then the guest Q&A will be first once I introduce the guest. Obviously, I have to bring the guest in for that first, and then we will have a Q&A and discussion. With Darren, this is going to be a little bit more casual as my business partner, so he's not strictly Stargate talent. And then normally we will take questions. We'll be pretty back and forth with the chat for this episode, but in the future, it's going to be pretty structured. I will have my questions, and then we will shift to guest questions at that point. Once I let the guest go, there will be announcements. So in this main episode, all the 30 guests that we announced, 30 some odd guests, are going to be in the body of the show. But in the future, new guests will be after the show in announcements. And if there's another show later in the day, then that's where that's going to go as well. And then I will also take any questions that Summer was given. So Summer Roy, she is in our chat as moderator. And where are you, Summer? Okay, so she's Summer SDR. That's her alias. And so she's going to be my right hand in the chat, and she's going to be getting me all this documentation. So yes, I believe Sam Carter asked, is this like Hathor hosts? We're going to get into that here in just a minute. So, and any news about Stargate returning and everything else. So that's where that's going to go. After the announcements and any personal Q&A that you have for me, we're going to go to a special section that's driven by the fan community, and it's fan art. So I'm a member of several Facebook groups, and there's a number of Stargate channels that have a lot of art that have been shared by the community. There's some really talented people out there, and that's where this is going to go. So we're going to show off some of that. If you've created anything Stargate, I know someone out there who's created little like Stargate dolls. It doesn't have to be physical artwork. You can email the show and provide us that, as long as you give us clearance to show it. So this is the basic structure of the program. Call to action is just actually that's also what I'm about to do with you right now. So before we bring in Darren, let's go ahead and show you how you can contribute. So before we get started, if you like Stargate and you want to see more content like this on YouTube, it would mean a great deal if you would click the like button. It would really make the difference with YouTube's algorithm, and would definitely help the show grow its audience. So please consider sharing this video with a Stargate friend, and if you want to get notified about future episodes, click the subscribe icon. Giving the bell icon a click will notify you the moment a new video drops, and you'll get any text notifications of my of any last minute guest changes, because believe me, this is going to happen. This is key if you plan on watching live. So clips from this live stream as well will be released over the course of the next several days in both the Dial the Gate and GateWorld.net YouTube channels, and the clips are designed for people who don't have a chance to sit through the whole show. Because look, Australia, New Zealand, you guys are getting shafted. I'm so sorry about that, but we had to put the show somewhere, and the biggest group is in Europe. So here it is. So you've been waiting for him, and he's been waiting. I know. I'm sorry about that, Mr. Darren Sumner.
Hello,
sir.
Hey. There we go.
Make you waiting so long.
That was a long introduction.
Yes, it is.
But that's okay. We're clearing the cobwebs. We're getting the gears greased and ready to go for a brand new show. I am so excited for Dial the Gate.
I thank you for I approached him, was it 2 months ago? And I said, we really need to get together and do something again. And it was actually him who made the comment. He was the one who said, if you really want to come back, and do something for the channel or for GateWorld, you're more than welcome to join us again. And it got me. We've always been kind of like in tandem with one another in terms of thoughts, and
as in sharing the same brain.
Yes, exactly. That happens a lot. And it seems to be the case. And I had already been thinking about this, and we're going to be talking about a little bit more about why now. So we're going to be getting into that as we move forward here. But you're doing good?
I'm doing well. David, for those who might be newish to GateWorld, GateWorld's been going for almost 21 years. David was a little bird who came to me as a young little sparrow and was nurtured. And I fed him worms directly into his mouth. I'm pushing the metaphor way too hard here. David came up on GateWorld all the way through end of high school, through your college years,
2003.
Into your professional career.
You listed the show as me joining you in 2004. That is not true.
In 2003, I got it wrong.
You got to correct that news story.
I'm going to fix it. I have the power. But here's the point. David was with GateWorld for a lot of years. You've seen, if you've been following GateWorld at all, you've seen his interviews, you've seen his video content, you've seen his editorial content for years and years, and then he left the nest. We sent him off, and David's done all kinds of amazing things. He's worked for Stargate Worlds, the MMO RPG video game that never came out, which is not David's fault. He worked for PropWorks.
Don't get me started on Stargate World.
Selling all the... I hope that we talk about it.
Yeah.
When the Stargate sets closed down and they auctioned off set pieces and costumes and props, David was at the heart of that, figuring out what everything was. You did the official magazine for a while. You did...
That's
what am I
thanks
forgetting?
to you. You got me that job.
I passed that one off to you.
Let's be honest.
But and then eventually David ended up working with MGM directly on Stargate Command. And so recently, 2017 to 2019, you've seen him co-hosting Dialing Home with Christopher Judge. And so our little bird left the nest. He grew up into a beautiful eagle. I don't know. This is... but now he's come home. And I'm so excited that he's come back to the nest.
I'm grateful to have a place at the nest still. It could have been like, no, we're not going to have you back. You soiled it elsewhere. Look what you did. So, but yeah, it's good to be back, and it's good to be with you again. And it's good to have you as the first guest. I don't know if this show is going to come of anything, but our guest lineup, I think, will make that the case. How are you dealing with this?
Dealing with being on a live stream?
No, I mean the 2,000 pound, the 60,000 pound Stargate in the room, the COVID-19.
We're dealing with it. 2020 is a weird year. It's the year that just won't quit. But we're making it happen. I live in the Seattle area, and I'm fortunate enough that the work that I do, I get to continue to do online. I've been teaching online and kind of haven't missed a step. In fact, I've gotten a little bit more work. It's been a little bit busier. But, I've got 3 kids. The kids are all home. They're doing home school from home on Zoom. So it's crazy. But, it's great to have outlets like Stargate and GateWorld and Dial the Gate to relax a little bit and have a little bit of normalcy, right? Going back and rewatch favorite episodes of SG1 brings a little bit of like comfort food for your eyes.
Well, I have always said Stargate is chicken soup. You watch it and it makes you feel good. Some of it is darker than others, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, I think that's what it really boils down to for me. And I'm really glad to hear that a lot of the talent are working again. And when we did, I don't know if you saw the Gatecon 20th anniversary retrospective about a month ago. We had an after show. It turned into an after party with Garwin Sanford and Simone Bailey, and they talked about this a little bit. And I'd like to bring in their perspective here.
LA's okay. I have a couple of friends there. It's pretty rough right now.
I'm not going to restaurants. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. Yeah. No.
Yeah, Garwin, okay. You getting some air out there? You guys okay?
Yeah, I've been self-isolating for like 6 months, basically. Literally. I mean, I just turned down, I got offered a movie, and it was one of the bigger roles I've been offered in ages, and I looked at the script. This was just a couple of weeks ago. And I looked at the script, and it had me in a room with 20 people, all actors and background without masks. And I looked at a crew of 50 or 60 or 70, and I'd be in a room for a few weeks, and at least with that many people. And I said, of 50 or 60 or 70. I don't think that's a smart thing to do in a room for
when are they shooting?
Weeks. Pardon me?
When are they starting shooting?
They started shooting about 2 weeks ago. Wow. I got offered it 4 days before it went. And I just thought it was a big decision for me because, I'm going, and I had been auditioning because in Vancouver, everything had started to drop. We were down to 0 cases. And that's when I started auditioning big time and started looking for stuff. And then this offer came, and I had to think about it quite seriously. And I told my agent, I said, actually, now the reality started to look at it. And then I realized, I phoned him, I said, look, I can't do this because at the risk of bringing it back to my family, I couldn't live with myself if that happened. And what was it for? Some money. I liked the role, but it just isn't smart. So then I said, I'm going to have to just pull out of the business until this is over because I can't take that risk. If I was living on my own, I might have thought of something different possibly, but you go, so the world has changed. I'm no longer a working actor until this is finished. It becomes, Although one of the bonuses is that, depuis le début de qu'ils ont moment COVID-19, de quarantaine, je suis plongé dans l'enseignement, le français moi-même.
So you're working on your French.
I've been spending the last 5 months teaching myself French because I've always wanted to do it. I had high school French and that was it. And I went,
This man is a jack of all trades. And he built his own house. He's a pilot. This man never fails to impress me.
I have to challenge myself somewhere. I go crazy, but it's been a real joy. I'm getting to the point where I can converse and listen in French. I have to so that's been fun. So there's something coming out of it because I forced myself into focusing on something while I was sitting in my house for 6 months.
Simone, you doing okay? I know I have friends in LA. It's pretty rough right now.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is just seeing how even in my friend group, how the views are so different on masks or not, and whether you should, business as usual or not. And I, agree that you should be safe and responsible and considerate, So I've gone through great lengths to make sure that I'm keeping myself and everyone else safe. I've spent most of this time as well, like alone, which is interesting, but I've really found new depths in myself, and I've learned a lot of things, and I, created my YouTube show, and there's been a lot of growth and kind of a deeper understanding. I think this is a really good time, if we can take anything positive out of it, is that we push the reset button, and there's something about when answers come to you in the silence a little bit. So yeah, and it's deepened a connection with a lot of people from all over, and even the fans too. It's really cool because they lift me up, because we all feel the depression. You can't not be affected by the pandemic and the politics and the way of the world and the injustices. It's quite glaring,
I apologize for the audio issues, guys. I'm not sure what's going on there. I'm going to have to figure that out. So I apologize for the loops. I've got some kind of channel wrong. Darren, can you hear me? And hang on just a second. I'm not hearing you.
Sorry, I muted myself because I was listening to Simone. I can hear you and I can hear Simone.
All right, perfect. Someone brought in the chat, it's made pretty clear that the Goa'uld destroyed the entire Tollan civilization.
The Tollan were knocked down, right? They were kind of a superpower by season 5. They had advanced technology. They were knocked down as a way of building up Anubis, as a way of demonstrating how much more powerful Anubis was than all the other system lords. He knocked down the Tollan. He punched the Asgard in the lip at the end of season 5.
I know something you don't know.
That's very likely.
Garwin and I got to talking one day, and there was another episode planned.
Yeah, to bring Nareem back?
I'm going to let Garwin talk about that. So he's one of our guests, and there was this whole thing that was going on.
Okay, I want to hear. Roll the clip.
No, I don't have a clip. We have to bring him on.
Garwin's going to be on the show.
Garwin's going to be on the show.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right. I'll watch that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So before, that's not the only thing. The fan community is a group that debates the minutia. And one of the ones that is stuck for years and it just will not go away. Nicholas Rush said that Destiny was launched hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
And it appears to be older than Atlantis. But Atlantis was, quote, several million years ago. So which is older?
This has confused me for a long time. I want an answer to this. I would love to get a Brad or a Rob or a Joe on the show and get an answer to stuff like that. Because we thought that Destiny, right? Because particularly because Destiny's Stargates seem to be like a version 0.5, right? Seem to be not quite as developed. They don't go as far. They can't go across an entire galaxy, for example. right? So we figured that the Destiny gates and Destiny's launch was probably first. It's probably the oldest. But then we get this line in the pilot of hundreds of thousands of years ago is when it launched.
Well, I reached out to Brad and I asked him that. And I said, can you please definitively...
Oh, the clip!
I don't...
Oh, you don't have the clip. I think you're doing... I keep thinking you're doing setups.
No, well, I mean, hey, I'm...
Okay.
It's possible. There may be a few more. There is something more later. But in terms of the Destiny answer, I asked him, you know, because you're the canon guru in terms of, like, show canon. Regardless of what Rush said, because he's just making a comment. What's the answer? And he said Destiny is older. Period. So, I mean, there's going to be fans who are going to be like, well, you know, Rush said it, so that's what it...
That's what I thought.
Brad Wright, who created Nicholas Rush, Destiny is older. So that's all.
So we had all these kind of weird little issues when you and I were working on the Stargate Omnipedia on a weekly basis, which is we have to count what happens on screen as canon, but every once in a while there'll be a little slip up, right? So canon has to account for the fact that these characters are also human beings who sometimes misspeak or estimate a date wrong.
Yes. Just because they say something does not mean it's definitive. So...
Yeah, there's an episode where Cam Mitchell references one of SG-1's previous missions, and he rattles off the planetary designation, and he transposes 2 of the digits.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that the planet is now called that. He just, right, Mitchell got it wrong in the hallway. That's fine.
Daniel, I mean, the same thing happens with Daniel. He said the Asgard's galaxy is Ida in season 2. And then in season 7, he tells, I think it's Elizabeth, he says it's Othala, when that's the name of the planet. He's just misspeaking, you know? They don't exist. They don't occupy in 2 galaxies. And then you've got story changes that happen because the story evolves. And, you know, in season 6, Ascension did not make you all seeing and all knowing. And by season 8, it did. You know, that's what Replicator Carter was probing his mind. And that's just how it is, you know? So that's one of the things that was an issue with me when we were doing Stargate Origins with Catherine Langford's origin story. So many fans were like, well, Catherine didn't do that. Well, how do you know? You know, because it didn't happen in canon. Well, as I've just demonstrated, canon evolves as the show moves forward based on what the storytellers need. So Stargate Origins, take it or leave it. But I mean, if you look at that, and I was involved in the production of that. I mean, you look at Catherine's book, there's a picture of a symbiote in there. You know, the DHD is in there. The reference to the reference to the dial home being the dial home device being the one that they have in Berlin is a reference to season 5 in the tomb, where Daniel reveals that the Germans dug up the gate, which makes and dug up the DHD and you know, which is the Germans had it. So it makes sense that the Germans would have come in at some point in the story, and so that's
there's lots of those little touch points in Stargate Origins. Like the Harcesis was a bit more prominent of a reference to SG-1 canon.
Yes, the Harcesis too. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, but you know, all the Origins ultimately does, I think, in terms of canon, is it just says that Catherine doesn't remember. Right? Spoiler alert for the end of Stargate Origins. She just doesn't remember that this happened to her.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it solidifies the relationship with the movie and the show more than not. And I look at that like, I'm a huge fan of the original Shining, a huge fan of the book, the original Shining. That's what I mean by that. Not the Stanley Kubrick version. I saw the Stanley Kubrick version for the first time just a few years ago. And it's fine. You know, it's a great horror movie, but it's not the story. It takes elements of the story. And then what Dr. Sleep did as a book was show that the miniseries, the ABC miniseries, was actually more appropriate to what happened, because in the end of the miniseries, Daniel Torrance graduates with honor. I'm sorry for any non-Stephen King fans out there, I apologize, but the elements of the miniseries were actually in Dr. Sleep. And then the movie comes out, Dr. Sleep, and it tries to merge the Kubrick vision with the King vision of The Shining, and that's, I think, what Origins really tried to do. So whether you think
it took a lot of inspiration from the feature film, but I think it works pretty well as glue between the two.
Yeah,
between SG-1 and the film.
So let's move on.
Let's move on. Welcome everyone to the Stephen King podcast.
There are worse things to discuss. Happy.
No, I really.
Go ahead.
I really want to know why you decided to jump on this bandwagon now. We know you have been very busy with Stargate Command up until it closed its doors in 2019. I'd love to hear as much as you're allowed to tell us about the content that you were working on, like season 2 of Dialing Home that did not get released or has not been released yet.
Let's roll that back a little bit. So why now? The world stopped spinning for all intents and purposes in many respects, and it presented a new opportunity. One of the things that we were struggling with was a level of quality with Dialing Home in terms of the presentation at MGM, and that was one of the conversations that was repeatedly had. Was that we like this interview, but we just, for whatever reason, so I'm not going to get into it. But then standards dropped like an anvil, because now we're all stuck
because
at
of
home.
the pandemic. Yeah.
And
suddenly everybody's used to Zoom.
Webcams.
For everything.
Exactly. We have no choice. If you want to make new content.
Martin Garrow,
yes,
who pitched, who's of course a writer-producer from Stargate Atlantis, Martin Garrow pitched a Zoom-based TV show. And they got picked up by a network, I think NBC.
We'll leave it to Martin. Man,
that's the world that we live in. He can make a show out of anything.
Yeah, he can. No, he.
But that's the world that we live in now. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the big thing. So I had been wanting when MGM closed up Stargate Command, it was crushing, because Stargate Command was what I was trying to do in terms of, and this is what this show is. This is my answer to the archive of American television. And if you don't know what that is, I highly recommend that you YouTube it, because it is a great series of long-form interviews with cast and crew of people who have defined television. And
you and I many years ago watched how long is it? 2-3 hour long interview with Rick Berman.
It's fantastic.
From Star Trek: The Next Generation. Yes. It was one of the best. As a kid who was made by Star Trek: The Next Generation, this was one of the most insightful, kind of long form pieces that I'd ever seen on that show or that franchise. So you and I were talking years ago about, boy, we want to do that with Brad Wright someday.
Exactly.
We want to do that with Joseph Mallozzi someday. Yeah,
exactly. And Brad was the one that I actually approached and said, if I'm going to do this, I have to have your involvement. There's no other I don't want anyone else as my first guest, but Brad. And so we've stayed talking, and then he went and started talking with MGM for a new Stargate series, and it was like, what do I do? You know, because he's busy working on that. And so I reached out to him and I said, okay, COVID's given us this window of opportunity, pardon the pun. And I want to do a new show with interviewing cast and crew. Do you mind if I go on and do that while you're working on this? You know, because I want to, if something is going to come of Brad's relationship with MGM and building a fourth Stargate series, it comes between,
you need to leave him alone.
Him doing this show,
that's what he's doing right
doing
now.
Stargate, I need to be out of his way. And so hopefully one day, you know, we'll be able to sit down with him for several episodes. So, but it's just not going to happen right now. So that's cool. But we have a tremendous number of guests that we're going to announce later on. That would make any convention, you know,
this is
excited.
Amazing. I mean, you approached me about the show 2 months ago, and I knew that you had the contacts and we're going to make this into something special. But I got to say, even I have been blown away by this opening roster for the guest list.
Yeah, I'm very proud of this, and we're gonna just make this thing happen. If it works, it works. If no one shows up, the next thing about the Archive of American Television and its content is that it's there on YouTube, and this is here on YouTube. YouTube is, for better or for worse, Google's created Earth's video memory.
Yeah.
And if you're going to create if you're going to create a space where past fans can come and learn about specific details about each individual episode, depending on the episode, on the Dial the Gate episode that you click on, with directors, with cast, with crew. I can't think of any better place to put it than YouTube. We tried to do that with Stargate Command, and it got sent to 7 countries. The whole world deserves access to, of Stargate fans deserve access to this content, and for free.
Yeah, 100%. And GateWorld, we have for 2 decades, GateWorld has thought of itself and has approached our work as an archive of the Stargate universe, both the fictional universe and also the production of the show. So I'm thrilled that Dial the Gate is living here with us at GateWorld and is serving this sort of archival purpose.
Exactly. That's the intent. Whether we do that or not is something else entirely. So
that's up to you. You got to get the work done now.
Well, and it's not just that, but it's convincing, the talent to do it. So try approaching Amanda Tapping and saying, "Will you sit down with me for 15 hours?" That's insane.
That's a long time.
She's a working director. So
I can get 20 minutes out of her every now and again.
Exactly. So, and you just can't get into the minutia. And the other thing that we haven't brought up yet is
she likes you better than me.
Well, I'm not going to challenge that, but oh, come on. The other thing is a lot of them, they don't remember this stuff. But they remember more than they think they do. I was having that conversation with Torri, don't kill me, but Torri Higginson. And she was like, I don't think, I'm going to remember as much as you think I remember. For season 2 of Dial the Gate, it was ultimately a 3-hour interview. No, it was 2 hours that we shot.
Dialing Home.
For season 2 of Dialing Home, not Dial the Gate. Excuse me. Thank you. And it's in season 2. Hopefully MGM will release it on YouTube. But once we got to the end of that, she was like, I remembered a lot more than I thought I would once you got me talking. And
you've gotten very good at this. I can't imagine anybody else doing a show like this right now, because you've spent 15 years, more than 15 years now, talking to these folks and not just building trust with them, but like learning the skills of how to draw out conversations and anecdotes for stuff, right? They shot this stuff 10, 15 years ago.
In some cases more, like with SG1, one of the things that I really want to do with this show eventually, hopefully, is do the commentaries for especially the first 3 seasons of SG1 that we didn't get because they weren't created for DVD yet, and a lot of those, we only started really doing interviews in earnest season 8, so there's a lot of that content that, there was some stuff, and you were definitely reporting earlier, but there's a lot of content for the earlier stories. It's not out there,
Yeah.
It's out there
there's
in
not
little
much.
corners.
Because the internet and the fan community online was still in its infancy.
Exactly.
When SG1 premiered in 97.
Yeah. The earliest writers on the show, Catherine Powers is one of the people that we're going to be talking to. She helped create the Tollan. She helped create the Asgard. And she didn't want them to be Roswell Greys. That was not her intent. So I'm interested to hear what her intent. I prefer that they're Roswell Greys. Frankly, I can't think of them being anything else. But I want to know what her intent was when you created this content. What was it that you were trying to do? And what were some of the conversations that were going on in the office? And I'm not looking for gossip.
That's amazing.
I'm just looking for what the creative process was happening at the time. I'm not interested in knowing fights around the office or anything like that. That's not productive.
Yeah, just the anecdotes of the building of SG lore.
Exactly right. Exactly. So that's the intent there. So,
and you were a fan all the way back then, right? Before you came to GateWorld, circa 2003, you'd been watching the show for years and years. So did you start at the beginning?
So I started, I think, about the time that you started. So I was in eighth grade, and I watched a lot of programming on Saturday nights. The local ABC affiliate had late night Saturday nights at like 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the evening. They had The Outer Limits and Poltergeist: The Legacy, which were shot at Bridge. And I loved these shows. I absolutely loved them. And then one night I was watching, and I think one of them aired. And then the second hour, I think it was supposed to be Poltergeist or something. I think Poltergeist came on second. And these guys are playing poker in this big gray space, and there's this big expensive ring, and I'm like, I vaguely recognize that thing. Is that the Stargate? Because I think that was the thing that was sitting next to the Fifth Element at the DVD center at Walmart. Because it looks like that. And those were sitting next to one another on the shelf for, at my recollection, years. I think that's what that is. And then the opening titles come up and it says Stargate. I'm like, oh, okay. They're doing a TV show. Isn't that interesting? And I don't typically go out and watch new stuff that, like, without like doing my research first. And I sat around and I watched it. And I watched it. And the first hour ended. And then there was a second hour.
It just kept going.
I was like, I'm too tired. So I put the recorder on and I watched the second episode the next day. Or the second half. And that's how I got into it. Then that Sunday night, NBC's movie of the week was Stargate. And that had to have been on purpose. I mean, I don't see how that could have been anything else. And then
maybe somebody called in a favor at Showtime.
Exactly. So then we didn't have cable. We just got satellite because I'm from a farming community. Cable was not allowed to run through the ground. So I watched season 1 in syndication and season 2 on Showtime in tandem. And that's how so after The Enemy Within,
okay,
I went and I subscribed to Showtime and I watched Joe Lenard's Memories. Or not Joe Lenard's Memories.
Tollan.
No. Oh, for God's sake. Come on. All these... In the Line of Duty. Sam gets taken by Joe Lenard. So that's that.
There were Joe Lenard's Memories in that episode, so you're very close.
Technically, yes. I suppose that's true. Anyway. But when did you get involved?
It was right about the same time. It was season 1 was airing in syndication, I think, and season 2 was on Showtime. I had discovered that they were making a Stargate show when I was in college. I'm a little older than you are. So I remember very vividly standing in the grocery store line and seeing the TV guide and seeing the announcement that they were making a show based on Stargate and that MacGyver was going to be in it. And that I was sold. I was hooked. But I was also in college in the 90s with no TV and certainly no Showtime. So it was a year. I finished college and moved across the country. I moved to Chicago and I ended up living in a place that had Showtime, and I found it. I found the show it was airing. So I would watch, it would have been new episodes of season 2 on Friday nights. Everybody remembers Sci-Fi Friday, or they called it Sci Friday on Showtime. And then on Saturdays, they would do back-to-back syndicated episodes, and I would be catching up on season 1 while I was watching season 2 and trying to figure out what's what. So I actually can't remember the first episode that I saw. I don't know which episode was first. I think it was probably...
You don't remember your first?
I don't remember my first. I think it was probably like late season 1 syndication. I think it was probably something like Tin Man or Enigma, something around there. But yeah, because then I was watching the show weekly on Showtime in season 2 while I was trying to backfill all the story. Like, I didn't know who Braytac was when he first showed up on screen because I hadn't seen Bloodlines yet.
Shame on you.
I caught up.
Yeah, eventually.
I caught up.
There were a few, like, it was a while.
I think I've seen all of them now.
That's funny. Oh, gosh. But before I forget, happy 21st anniversary.
Thank you.
To GateWorld.
Thank you.
It's the
to GateWorld, yes.
22nd?
And also my marriage.
Is it to your marriage as well?
Yeah, my wife and I got married in July.
Interesting.
And I got her hooked on Stargate, of course, and we were watching it weekly. And then middle of season 3 on Showtime, the night that Joe Lenard's Memories aired was the night that GateWorld was born. So it's just...
Why is that?
Another couple of weeks now. It's 21 years, a couple of weeks from now.
You put the punchline at the beginning.
I put the punchline.
Why was it?
Well, I've told this story.
Well, you're going to tell it again.
The people in the chat have heard this story before.
Maybe not.
I'd be really curious, people in the chat, how many of you used to listen to us Babylon on the podcast, on the GateWorld podcast?
I would like to know that as well.
And how many of you are brand new to the two schmoes here on the screen? What was your question?
How did you...
Something about Stargate?
Why did you... Oh, yeah, that one show with the...
Joe Lenard's Memories.
Yeah.
So I was... You want the short version of this or the long version?
The 1 minute elevator pitch.
The elevator pitch. Joe Lenard's Memories, good show, website.
Yeah, the 1 minute elevator pitch, not the 1 minute I don't know what that was.
So I was
McDonald's window pitch.
I was when I was in college in the 90s, I taught myself HTML and pulled together some websites here and there. But you know what really grabbed me in the second and third season of the show was the show's mythology and the way that it was not just episodic, which most sci-fi shows, most television shows in the 90s were episodic. Nobody really was doing serialized arc storytelling all that much, except for shows like Babylon 5. And here was this show. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I know. Here
was this show in Stargate SG-1 that kept making references back to its past. It was mostly episodic, but it kept referring to mythology. And so it was rewarding the audience for paying attention. It was rewarding the audience's intelligence, recognizing the audience's intelligence. So it was everything coalesced in the season cliffhanger, the mid-season cliffhanger for season 3, where they go to Natu, right? Like SG-1 goes to hell to rescue Jacob Carter. And the reveal at the end of this episode is that Neonak, the prison warden, or the right hand to the prison warden, Bynarr, Neonak takes off his hood, right? And it's Apophis, raised from the dead.
We were totally sold false bill of goods with the voice being
blown away
for the rest of the episode.
Yeah, they totally tricked us. It worked like a charm. Peter Williams agreed to have his name appear in the end credits instead of the beginning credits, so that it didn't spoil the surprise for people who know who plays Apophis. And it was just great. It was blown away. And so what I wanted to do was make a website that followed these interconnecting pieces, right? That traced the mythology.
Follow
and could
the
help
story, I think you called it.
Follow the story. We did that for a while. And it could help people go back and figure out, okay, who was that guy? Why is this important? When did he die again? And kind of create a Stargate version of a site that I had followed for years and years when I was enjoying Babylon 5, which is the Lurker's Guide to Babylon 5. They connected all the story pieces, the plot beats, what do we know, and also collated all of the creators' commentary, right? All the behind the scenes production stuff. So I could watch the show and then go on and spend an hour reading the Lurker's Guide about that episode. I wanted to do a Stargate version of that.
I'm interested to know why Follow the Story doesn't exist. Like this is like the genesis of GateWorld. Why doesn't it exist in the current version? Like clickable on the side of the screen where you can. Jaffa Revenge starts in season 4 and then it ends. The
follow the storyline. Yeah. So we used to do this on the episode guide in the older version of the site. There was a little follow the story box, and you could just click next and follow like the replicator storyline or whatever it was. I have had every intention of bringing that back over the last several years, but it's been one of those projects that's kind of sat on the shelf because we had higher priorities. I'd like to do it. And I'd also like to do some feature kind of editorial content like that is, here's a self-contained story. We've been doing that a little bit. Here's a self-contained story. Like, I just want to watch all the Replicator episodes. Right. Okay, here's a list of them.
Yeah, Star Trek did that with the DVD collections for a little while there. You had a Borg collection and a Q collection. It's a really cool idea. I would love to see that feature added back to GateWorld. I mean, I'm just saying. So if you have a chance to do that at some point, I'd be happy to sit down and organize all the episode plugs. So I'm just putting that out there in the universe.
Good. We'll get it done.
So you've been doing this for 21 years. Triumphs, tribulations, highlights. Tell us about them.
Triumphs, tribulations, and highlights. There's a lot there. Boy, it's been we've been through a lot. And this guy on the screen, which direction do I point? This guy has been my brother through most of those years. So we've had a lot of great memories together, going to conventions, talking to cast, talking to other fans, exploring not just the shows, but the world of fandom, right? Exploring people who write fanfic, people who cosplay, people who are other content creators now that YouTube is a platform for other people to share their love of Stargate. Believe it or not, GateWorld had been around for years already before YouTube was a thing. GateWorld predates YouTube. GateWorld predates podcasting. GateWorld predates blogs.
Okay, just stop. Yeah, you're good.
I'm very old. No, what I'm saying is I'm very old. Much older than I look. But no, it's having the incredible opportunities to visit the set. One of my shining moments that is always going to stand out to me is walking onto the SG-1 set for the first time and reaching my hand out right onto the concrete wall of Stargate Command. And guess what? It's not concrete.
Fourth wall broken.
Yeah, it's amazing because this is it's totally self-contained in this set.
Yeah.
Right, even the red klaxon spins over the door when filming commences. That's a functional piece of the SGC set, but it's actually part of the bridge studios to notify people when filming is happening. So yeah, it was amazing to see the production design up close and to not even recognize that this was, what is it, sculpted and painted foam or whatever they use.
Yeah, exactly.
It was amazing. And then getting to go across to stage 6 and walk onto the Atlantis set for the first time. Mm-hmm. My first visit to Bridge Studios was in 2004, before Atlantis had premiered. They were filming the first regular episode after the pilot. They were filming Hide and Seek. And so to get to go onto that set and hang out with that cast, and David Hewlett came to the lunch tent and hung out with me and just wanted to talk about websites because, he's a geek. It was fantastic. It was amazing, right? It was a dream come true for a 20-something nerd like me.
Absolutely. When I first found my way to that set for the first time, I had remembered that you had been talking about that experience where it was like, when you go, your perception of this thing is going to change forever. And I was so excited to get the opportunity to go with you. I think when season 9 of SG-1 was premiering, so the very next year I got to go with you.
Yeah, 2005. It was season 9 of SG-1 and season 2 of Atlantis.
And I did the same thing that you did, where I put my hand on the wall and I had the exact same visceral experience. And once you break the fourth wall, you can't unbreak it. Like the magic is gone. At least for me, it was. I mean, I can still watch the show. And I can get into it, and I can completely be swept away in the narrative. But when all the players, when you know how the sausage is made, okay, that's not a very good way of describing it. But when how it's done, the magic is gone, largely. You can still
the magic changes. This is
okay,
I wouldn't say the magic is gone. I'd say what it's done for me, and I think it's been the same case with you, is what it's done is it's created a whole new way to enjoy the show, because you start to enjoy the production of it. You get used to Martin Wood's little directorial ticks, and you can recognize an Andee Makita episode when one comes on, and you appreciate Pineapple Guy. You appreciate the use of space, right? I was shocked when I stepped into the gate room how small it is compared to how spacious it looks on screen. And you the tricks, how they're spinning sets. The mess hall in Atlantis. They shoot the mess hall where the Stargate is.
And the gym.
That's the same space.
Other things, it's the exact same space. There was a circle in the floor, if you notice, if you're looking closely, and that's where they put the Stargate when they're not filming it. They could just
lower the gate down and hide it. Yeah. It's amazing.
It's genius.
And the infirmary is like a hallway.
Yeah, basically, for all intents and purposes.
So I came to love the shows in a different way. It added a new dimension to me.
The magic. What magic was removed from me was replaced with the relationships with the cast and the crew, very much with the crew, because they just they took us around, and Bridget Prochaska, Carol Appleby, love you both. You guys were amazing. You got us year after year. We would go back there and just build these relationships with these people, and they were working a job, but they were loving it.
It's become more common, I think, for web-based media and for fan media to get access like that. But it was pretty unheard of. 2004, 2005. It was a real joy, and they were just right. It was absolutely professional. Treating us like we belonged there. Yeah. That's the weirdest thing. Was walking around Bridge Studios and being treated like I belonged there.
Right. Once we told them who we were, they were like, it was like, like, oh, you're with that. It was very much like, oh yeah, I've seen that, or I enjoy your work. I'll never forget Charlie Cohen, with who was at MGM for years. I want to interview Charlie so bad.
Oh yeah,
He
that'd be amazing.
was a genuine Stargate fan, and he's a lot of the reason why Stargate was on the air for as long as it was. I met Charlie at least once at a lot of the launch parties for I think at least, I can't remember where it was, but he said, when I wake up in the morning and I sit down at my computer, I go on to a what do they call it? A fantasy book baseball site of all things.
Okay.
And I log into that, and I log into GateWorld. And when he said that was like, wow,
Yeah.
I think he was VP at MGM, wasn't he? And
He was a VP, yeah.
My gosh,
Everybody
that was
in the
cool.
chat, you owe Charlie Cohen so much.
More than
what
you think that
Stargate
you
became.
do. Yeah.
More than you know. He's, as far as I understand, he's largely responsible for the show continuing after season 5, when it moved networks.
Yeah, he's very important to that puzzle. There's the 10th anniversary, the celebration of 10 years book. Those of you who may have the book out there, the SG1 celebration of 10 years. If you go to the end of it, there's a picture of Charlie, and there's a reason for that. So,
Good.
Any of these other questions that we want to go? Do you have anything else for me before
I want to talk about all this.
Yeah. I don't know how much time you have. So
I have until my family gets home and starts being really noisy behind me.
I don't think
We got time.
Okay.
No, but here's what I want to ask you, because I know you're going to be spending the next forever on your weekends interviewing Stargate cast and crew. We're going to have the guest announcement here a little bit later in the show, but this is my chance to interview you a little bit. I want to hear more about your experiences working in the franchise, but first I want to know what on earth is going on behind you. Can you tell the people about some of your collection that is going to be your set deck for this show?
I'm clearly a very big Babylon 5 fan.
Oh, come on.
So some of these are models.
I see the Pegasus wall plaque there.
Yes, so Dean Newberry made that for me, my buddy. We were at PropWorks. We fabricated a Pegasus logo, and you can even see the original machine CNC work done on the original in that copy. And then he painted the replica, and I love it. So the window of opportunity piece, I won that at Gatecon a few years ago. It's an original Ori helmet. That's the Telcheck device. That specific one.
Telcheck's device.
Yeah, that's not from season 7. That's from 200. So the one that Mitchell's holding because it lights.
Okay, they rebuilt the prop for 200.
They did indeed, yeah. So
that was the Pierre Bernard sequence.
That's the Pierre, exactly. The
zombie sequence, yeah.
And then one of my favorite Federation ships, Prometheus, the ice cream cone, Aurora class ice cream cone phaser. That's there. That actually still works. Like that was like 2004, 2005. The batteries still work on it.
Oh my goodness.
Heard one of those. And the pain stick.
That's a pain stick there.
I forget, like the oldest battery in the world that still runs is like 150 years or something. So it's a chemical reaction. At the top, from Rite of Passage, what do you think this is for? Mobile emitter. That was a trip to the El Nido in the Philippines, or Boracay in the Philippines at the very top there. Ed 209, Ronnie Cox reference. The Enterprise. The Wraith grenade. That's an original Kino. That is one of
an original Kino.
Yes, that's
beautiful.
Laura Roslin burnt that in sometimes a great notion. My favorite episode of Battlestar Galactica, probably the Stormtrooper helmet, and then at the bottom there, that you can barely see it, but it's one of McKay's Game Boys, and the doll from Whispers that I think Dusty picks up, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah.
And then Sodan staff.
Nice. That's a shorter staff weapon. It's not a regular staff weapon. That's the Sodan staff from season 9.
A Borg from First Contact. So that's what's behind me here. But I had, for season 2 of Dialing Home, I had models commissioned. And then I got the models, and all the shooting was in Vancouver, and I was like, I'm not flying with this thing. I'm gonna break it. So let me show this. This is my pride and joy. Let me get this over here. Chris Baker, he built this for the show.
What is this? Oh my.
So Darren's actually looking on a different camera than what's being broadcast on the channel. So I'm
Am I ahead or behind?
What do you mean? So anyway, yeah. So what I'm saying is you're not gonna necessarily see the full thing here. This is a BC 304, clearly, 7,000 pieces of styrene.
Oh my goodness.
And it's more than 7,000. He stopped counting. So
You stopped counting at 7,000. I would too.
yes. So I
That's
don't
beautiful.
know how good the resolution is going to be, but every individual piece on there is an individual unit. He sent this thing to me, and it had an instruction manual that actually came with the model. He made a custom piece of a custom instruction piece, because all of the comm towers, all the little the pieces, these individual pieces here,
The little antennas that stick up?
yeah, those did not come installed. So he had little poles with holes in them, and he said, okay, this one goes here, this one goes here, this one goes here. So I'm like, these things, they come off.
That's amazing.
So,
Don't pull it off.
oh, sorry. And yeah, it's like has an edge to it, like it's halfway. It's cut slightly so that it fits in flushly. So there we go. But this is a brilliant piece of art. It took him months to make this, and we didn't get to feature it in Dialing Home. And now it's going to be a part. This is going to be the closest you're going to see of it. It's going to be in the back from now on this lovely custom stand that he. Oh, I need to clean that.
Cool.
Anyway,
I love it.
It won't have dust. But that's in production right now, or this is already made.
I just want a half decent Lego set for the Daedalus.
Do they make that?
No.
They don't?
Oh, there's fan made.
There's
304s all over the place.
I love the Stargate quote unquote Legos that have been created, and prominently on it's not a Lego brand, and then on the box it says we'll work with other buildable sets.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, MGM gave the license to Bestlock.
Exactly.
It was one of the not quite Lego knockoffs.
Exactly right. Then Stephen Barr created one last model. I swear to God, the other two are still on the way. They're not here yet, and I'll introduce them when they get here. This is a 3D printed Hatak. So
I haven't seen this one. This is phenomenal.
Yeah, this is precious to me as well. This Stephen did a great job with this.
Is it? Oh, it's three-sided Hatak, not a four-sided Hatak.
Well, yeah, that's
rare.
a pyramid ship. So this is the three-sided. I'm trying to get used to the perspective of this camera. But yeah,
you know the story of the four-sided Hatak from Double Jeopardy.
That Bruce was talking about, the Rainmaker digital effects producer.
Yeah,
tell it.
They had, of course, a Hatak has three sides, as David just showed us. A pyramid ship, like Ra's ship that we saw in the feature film, has four sides
to fit on the pyramids.
To fit on top of a pyramid. And the writers wrote, right? SG1 had acquired a Hatak in Double Jeopardy.
Correct.
Episode 421. I was thinking of Exodus, but no, that's the next one when they already have it. Yeah. So they get Cronus's Hatak, and we see it landing on a pyramid, but it is definitely a Hatak. It's not a pyramid ship. So the visual effects team had to go in and like specially alter and
they did it
magic
as 2D.
WYSIWYG it.
Which means they keep it as a static shot so that you don't notice when the thing lands on its long side that the other two sides are not going to be fitting. And that's how they pulled that off. Yeah. But
so the end of Double Jeopardy, watch, it's a three-sided pyramid ship landing on a four-sided pyramid.
It's interesting because, I mean, Darren Neal goes on and on. They back sell this from the feature film because he doesn't bring it up in the movie that, that he believed that the pyramids were landing pads for alien spaceships. And then you create the spaceship for your show, and you don't make it pyramid compatible. And it's like, okay.
It's just a different class ship, right?
I suppose
that's what we thought at first.
They're supposed to land on pyramids. That's the
Apophis
intent.
has a different class of ship.
I guess, it's one of those things that I want to ask Brad. I mean, was this an accident? Is this like a Tyler O'Neill / Charlie O'Neill accident from the feature film, or was this just deliberate, where there's supposed to be 3-sided pyramids? Because I mean, the pyramid doesn't have to be 4 sides, does it?
I want to see the 3-sided pyramids on Chulak.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
We just redo Children of the Gods again.
Yeah.
Just give us a really final cut of Children of the Gods.
Yeah,
and I want to see 3-sided pyramids.
They may be on.
It makes total sense.
They may be on Dakara, because that wider shot in the extended version, there's Hatak sitting on the background. They have to be sitting on something if they're supposed to be landing pads for them. So, but anyway, maybe the Jaffa just don't care. Maybe they just land them on the ground. Anyway, that's way too minutia.
You got this cool collection of stuff, a lot of which is not on screen. I know you've told me some of it's going to make an appearance on the show in your background. People can tune in every week and look for new stuff in your background.
Yeah, this Borg is going away. So this is the last time you're going to... A lot of the Star Trek stuff... I'm not moving the Enterprise because the cells are about to go. But
no, don't move the Enterprise.
The Star Trek stuff, I'm switching out. So over here... There's, I'm going to show you what's there. Actually, I just took it off the wall to show it in just a minute here because I'm giving it away at the end of October. Should I talk about that now, or no? I'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I've got going on here.
So a lot of this comes from your time at PropWorks, I imagine, and the connections that you had, not just with the original set pieces.
I did not lift them. So at the end of the auction,
you bought some auctions. Them. I know, yeah.
Right. So no, I want that out there. This is all I paid for all of it. MGM got paid.
Of course. I want to know of all the Stargate jobs that you've had in your life, Stargate Command and PropWorks and Stargate Worlds and the magazine, excluding GateWorld. I know GateWorld's your favorite, but what memories do you have from those years of working on different aspects of this franchise?
I mean, that's big. I mean, that's like deep, yo.
It's like most of your professional life
Stargate
has been Stargate.
I was a radio DJ for 6 years, from like September 11th to 2007. And that's the reason that I was able to spend so much time on GateWorld, because that's all that I was, really doing, was just sitting there spinning discs and hanging out with you. Stargate Worlds was my first like real job, and that was tremendous. And when they closed the doors, it was just devastating. And I'll talk more about Stargate Worlds as we move forward. Hopefully, I'll have some of the people that will be involved, that were involved with Stargate Worlds, to be involved with the show as well, with Dial the Gate. And I have so many good memories from that experience. PropWorks was a beast in and of itself. I didn't want to move to LA, and I was in Phoenix. I stayed in Phoenix. I'm originally from St. Louis, the east side of St. Louis, Southern Illinois. And I moved to Phoenix, which is where I am now, for PropWorks, for Stargate Worlds, which was based in Mesa, Arizona, and I'm south of there now. And then when that closed, I stuck around for about a year and a half, and just, I worked with Jenny Stiven with Fox Home Entertainment. I met her through you and through GateWorld, and so I did a number of home entertainment releases with her. Just to stay afloat. And then I talked with Alec Peters over at PropWorks. We went up to he needed a consultant. I went up to Vancouver and helped them pick out which props had significance. And by the end of that, he offered me a job. And it was like, I'd rather not move to LA. And he's like, well, that's the job.
Yeah, but you were perfect for the job.
Well,
I can't imagine. Again, it takes somebody who knows and loves the franchise, because as far as I understand it, production, MGM and Bridge Studios weren't dedicating a whole lot of resources to this project. So they found somebody to sort of clearing out the props and identifying
You'd
stuff.
be surprised how much they helped. Mark Davidson,
they
was
did.
the set decorator. I mean, and Valerie
Yeah.
Halverson, the costume designer at that point, they were with us every step of the way while we
Yeah,
were
yeah.
there. But they don't have encyclopedic knowledge of the on-screen content.
Yeah.
And
But you can recognize stuff,
relevant.
right? You can
Right,
you
so
can
that's where I
recognize
came in.
a Tollan hand weapon and
Right.
know exactly
Or
not
something-
only what it is and what episodes it appeared in, but as you said, how significant it is.
Exactly. No, that's a fair point. And a lot of stuff was modified later on, and so it became other things. But it's like this wasn't as important later, but I need to get it for the auction because it was this at that point. There was a lot of that. Mark Davidson and Valerie Halverson. Mark was set decorator, and his entire team. They stored stuff before we got there, and they actually built certain things for us, like the end caps on the Stargate Atlantis Stargate pieces. Those were all created for PropWorks for production, so they were so helpful. And we spent a week there pulling stuff apart and cataloging costumes and everything else. And I had a few interesting arguments with Valerie Halverson, where it was like, she had created some really amazing costumes, and so she was really close to them on aesthetic grounds. And I was like, but it has like 5 seconds of screen time, and no one's going to buy it, That's the thing. And I thought, then we take this stuff back to LA, and it's interesting to watch what stuff sells for a lot of money and which stuff people don't care for. So even I was right a lot of the time, and I
There's
never
a big
done anything
difference.
like this.
I would imagine there's a big difference between, screen used and Amanda tapping screen used.
It's a big thing. And PropWorks was 18 months of my life. And it was I think probably the hardest I physically ever worked running that warehouse.
Yeah, you were working hard. I remember you were doing kind of weekly auction updates for GateWorld.
Exactly.
And you were working hard. You were in the warehouse
and
all the time.
Learning how to use a pallet jack and learning how to use a forklift and moving stuff around. A lot of the bigger, Stargate pieces that we had. We had the Stargate from the gate room, the outer shell of it, the inner pieces. They just cut it up, and it was too big, so we had the outer shell that we sold, but the location gate, we kept that. And here's an interesting story for you, if you can believe it. The Sci-Fi Museum in Seattle, the EMPSFM, I don't know if it's called that anymore.
Yeah, it's Mopop, I think.
Right, exactly. We had it all ready to go that for the first auction, and the first auction was held there. For the first auction, we were going to have the location SG1 gate. And that week, SGU needed it for the episode where they go back to Tollan. Not to Tollan, to Langara. So the week that we were having the auctions is the week that they were shooting that episode just a few hundred miles south. And so I was like, I've had this thing in my warehouse for 9 months, and Mark and his team had to fly down, drive it back from LA to Vancouver to be used in this episode of Stargate Universe the same week. And then the nice thing that happened was that the museum bought the location SG1 gate. So I didn't have to ever see it again. And at that point, believe me, that was like, I don't want this again. I've already allocated that space to other things. I don't need it. That was a big deal for me, not getting the location
I'm glad they
gate
got
back.
that. I'm glad they got that.
I hope
that needs to be on display.
I don't know if they've put it up.
I don't know if it is on
it's
display.
In storage. I don't know if they've ever displayed it. So, but yeah, that's.
I am a terrible sci-fi fan. I haven't been up there yet. I haven't been to the museum. I live an hour away from it.
70 miles away. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, absolutely. So that was really cool.
That's cool.
So I think PropWorks in many respects is some of my favorite memories. Then also going on and. I'm probably going to miss a job at some point or something, but Stargate Command was really special because I got to work with Jenny Stiven, my producer over at Fox. We had worked on, the first thing that we did together was content for Stargate Continuum. We created this whole alternate reality podcast, a video podcast with my buddy Sam Diter. And it's out there on the web somewhere. I'm not entirely sure if you can find it, but it's set in the Stargate Continuum alternate universe. And it's this guy who builds a video podcast, and it's 10 episodes long, I think. And he's talking about how he thinks that history has been altered, and he can't explain why. And we had photos, classic photos, like is it Johnson that replaced Kennedy? Johnson replaced Kennedy, didn't he? Yeah. and being sworn in on Air Force One, and Ball's in the background in a suit and tie. So we had so to show that Ball was on Earth. I mean, he says he hasn't been there in this life, but we wanted to say in the podcast series that in the Stargate Continuum alternate timeline, Ball had been on Earth for a while. And in the end, I actually had a visual effects supervisor come in and have we had the last episode, the last podcast, is Sam running through his apartment complex, and he's looking up, and the Hatox energy beams, the plasma blasts are coming down out of the sky and raining total carnage, and then he dies. And that's how it ended.
And that's how it ends.
That's how it ends. And I don't know where
great.
that is. But yeah, so Jenny
I'd
and
love
we
to see
go
that.
back way back. Oh, it looks terrible. The visual effects are great actually, but everything else is meh. Sam did a good job though. But my relationship with Jenny Stiven is she's one of my best friends to this day. And being able to work with her on Stargate Command was a dream come true. Because like you, we just grok one another. We get one another, and I really hope that we can get her on the show at some point, and that we'll be able to
she's
work
a fan, and she's got it.
Exactly.
She's got it deep in her soul.
Absolutely, she does. So yeah, that's my Stargate journey for the most of it. So
You reminded me. You mentioned Continuum. The other awesome memory that you and I shared was when we were visiting the set in 2009, I guess it would have been.
Was that the year that they came out?
It was the year that continued. No, 2008. Yeah. So they shot them in 2007. They came out in 2008. Yeah. And we got invited to the cast premiere of the film.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
So we went to the theater in Vancouver. Yeah.
Right.
And
that was during the week of the creation convention.
With the cast and the crew, they had it during the week of the convention.
Yeah.
And we got to interview. You put together a little video montage of our screening continuum on the red carpet. That's still on GateWorld.
Red carpet thing afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah. We talked to a bunch of everybody who was there. It's really low res, unfortunately, as are most things that we shot 12 years ago today.
What we can with what
we
got.
It's so great, and it was a joy to be there. It was amazing because I ended up watching Continuum. I love Continuum. Continuum was one of my all-time favorite Stargate stories. And the first time I saw it, I was sitting in a theater row directly behind, I think it was Michael Shanks and Lexa Duig. Yeah.
Was it? Yeah. Because Michael, I remember for that event, Creation had a meet and greet scheduled for Michael. And in exchange of that, everyone got to go on the bus with Michael, who had gotten that meet and greet, to go to the Continuum screening with him instead, because he wanted to be there for the premiere. And so that's what that was. There was some hijinks that happened there that I'm not going to get into, but it was nothing to do with Michael, but with the fans. So, it
was super cool though. It was amazing.
So cool.
It was a great memory. And then just a couple of years ago, when we went to the premiere of Stargate Origins on the deck of the Midway in San Diego Harbor, I was sitting behind Chris Judge and Tony Amendola.
Yes.
Watching them watch the film.
Yep. Absolutely.
Which was a lot of fun.
Were you there for Comic-Con? No, you weren't when we did the screening for Continuum on the Midway. I don't think you were there.
For Continuum, no, I wasn't.
Okay. That was a good event. So, I wanted to raise a question to you real quick before we get into fan feedback. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. The GateWorld poll that's up there now. I don't know how long it's been up there. But 63% of voters want the next Stargate series to be serialized. I was surprised at that. 28% want episodic.
Interesting.
You have any feedback on that?
Let me look at the polls. Yeah, the poll's been up for a few months now, I think. No, you did tell me this was coming. I'm now trying to load up the poll so I can see it in front of me. We asked fans, what kind of Stargate series do you most want to see next? Because we know that Brad and MGM are working on something. We just don't know what it is yet and what form it's going to take, where it's going to be available, etc. So we asked what kind of Stargate series do you most want to see? Do you want to see a serialized show, one ongoing storyline, something like a Stargate Universe or Lost or Babylon 5 that's serialized? Episodic, each episode can stand alone. That's kind of classic Stargate SG-1, Atlantis. It's kind of classic 90s storytelling, I guess. Or an anthology. Now, we know Brad Wright, before he worked on SG-1, and even at the same time as the first few seasons of SG-1, Brad worked on The Outer Limits for MGM. Brad Wright and Jonathan Glassner were both producers and writers on The Outer Limits. And so they're used to doing an anthology show, which is a standalone story every single week, right? New setting, new characters. You watched The Outer Limits, didn't you? When you were watching Poltergeist: The Legacy and Stargate SG-1?
Yeah, that
you
was
watched The Outer Limits.
The new Outer Limits
for
for years before. I've never seen the original, but the one that Brad and Jonathan did is the one that, which I think
that was an MGM production
that
they shot at the Bridge Studios.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons why you're going to see so many of those actors, not to mention the behind-the-scenes personnel, but a lot of the cast from The Outer Limits ended up on SG-1 at some point.
Yeah, my favorite episode of Outer Limits has Terrell Rothery as a presidential aide, and that character is the reason that she is Janet Fraser. So
Shanks did an episode, Amanda did an episode, Lou Diamond Phillips did an episode.
Before they were cast?
I think Michaels was after, but I'm not sure about the others.
Okay. Yeah.
Bo Bridges was on there.
Yeah, he premiered it with him and his father and his son. They premiered with the Sand Kings. So absolutely.
So I love a sci-fi anthology series, and I know from his Outer Limits experience, Brad's really good at them. I don't think it's very likely that we're going to get a Stargate anthology series where it's just sort of stories set in the Stargate universe, but I would love it. That'd be fantastic. So yeah, we put out this poll for fans, and by a mile, the biggest draw here is a serialized show. 64% of the vote, one ongoing serialized show. I guess it doesn't surprise me because it's so kind of common nowadays.
I think that's just what we're used
to.
We're used to
especially for streaming.
A novel. Yeah.
If we get a 10 or a 13 episode season of something on a streaming service, that's the way that the medium has gone.
Yeah.
It tends to be serialized storytelling.
Yeah, that's a fair.
What did you think of that? Was it surprising to you?
It was shocking to me because we're always I'm in a lot of the Facebook social groups, and they're all bring back Stargate Atlantis, bring back Universe. It's funny to me now. I call it the vaunted mantra. There we go, the vaunted mantra, bring back Stargate. So, but it's. But the poll surprised me in that they don't want it brought back exactly as it was. They want it more brought back as SGU. So, which is fine by me because SGU was my favorite. I don't make bones about that. So,
is that true? I've heard you say that before recently. I think you said it when you were back on the GateWorld podcast for our 150th celebration.
I can't,
and that surprised me at the time.
Well, I won't.
Why has SGU become your favorite?
Because it allowed the characters. The storytelling enabled the characters to grow to such depth so fast, and especially in the last 10 episodes of that show, that you could really see where it was going. I don't look back on SGU as my favorite as what it was. I look back at it as my favorite on what it was going to be in addition to what it already was, because those characters are still continuing, even if they're icicles for me. But also, I can't throw on SGU if I'm at a restaurant and want to watch an episode. I throw on Tangent. I throw on Red Sky. I'll throw on Sunday or, McKay and Mrs. Miller. But SGU really is my favorite. So
the show's so well done.
Oh my God.
They're really at the top of their craft.
Yes.
At the time they got there.
Exactly. The production studio that had existed since MacGyver. Because a lot of those people came over from MacGyver.
They came over from MacGyver.
Exactly right. Had been.
But we had talked. We had sort of annual conversations with the creators of that show, with Brad and Rob, once or twice a year, kind of ongoing during our set visits, and every once in a while, kind of in between, we do phoners with them, and we got the sense of the show that they wanted to make before they announced it.
Yes.
And so looking back at it now, I see a lot of people still making the comments of, it was just a Battlestar Galactica ripoff. It was just, they were just doing dark because dark was in fashion. And that's really not where their headspace was.
Not for them personally, no. I can't speak to the network. But for them
I can't speak to the network, but that's not, they wanted to make a show that was in continuity, obviously, with what had come before, but really was a new take on Stargate storytelling. And they did it really well. But yeah, I think you're right. They created this as a 5-year story. And so
Yeah,
right?
and they got
we got 2
out of the
years.
gate.
But
So-
SGU also takes its licks sometimes because it has a slow start. It takes
Not
a
just
while
that.
for the crew to start to feel
Yeah.
like a family, for them to get along, for them to
Yeah.
want to be there.
But with television that we watch now, that's normal.
It's normal because it's conceived as a 5-year story.
Right.
That's why it took a
That's
year
true
and a
as
half
well.
for them to decide that they wanted to be there
But-
and pursue the mission of destiny, is because that's right. It's roughly the end of Act 1 when they start that for a 5-year story.
But let's address the elephant in the room. SGU is perceived as replacing Atlantis. Period.
Yeah, that was a production issue.
That was a production issue.
The fact that that Atlantis did not get its 6th season and instead SGU came on the air. That's all, that's all behind the scenes production stuff that ends up affecting fan perception of the show.
Yeah, exactly. And Elena Huffman and I talked about this at some detail at length on the dialing. I'm going to do this for a while.
Dial that home. Anything that has the word dial in it is the correction of the show.
Dialing home. I don't know
Dial
if the
that gate
episode
home.
is up on YouTube yet, on the Stargate Command channel. But she talks about, even to this day, people will come up to her at conventions like, "I like Stargate Universe." She says, "Say it louder so people can hear you." So
Yeah, she got some guff, and she's been on the record in
Yes.
public interviews with how poorly she and some of the other casts were treated.
for no fault of their own, they were just
Yeah,
doing a
it's a
job.
shame.
So I am an unapologetic Stargate Universe.
Okay,
superfan.
so Universe is your favorite show. What is your favorite episode?
Of Universe,
Individual hour of any of the 3 seasons.
I'm having to refresh myself on the names of the episodes, but I would probably have to say Epilogue. It's the ending that we got that wasn't supposed to be the definitive ending, which for now, and unless Brad pulls a rabbit out of his hat with MGM, please God, pull that rabbit.
Yeah.
That's the ending that we got, and Epilogue is my favorite.
It's a great choice.
Time is back there too, and I hadn't seen Butch Cassidy at that point, and I watched Time, and I'm like, it ended. I'm like, what the hell is this?
Rush's line as he's
what did I just watch?
as he's
Brian's
running into the
line.
gate.
Well, that too, but Brian ending the show. It's like, that's it, And I for artistic purposes, I bought that pretty much immediately. Oh, that's it. We don't need any more story. We get it.
Yeah.
But still, it was like, and then the more I thought about it, I was like, that was cool.
And they did a little tag. They did a little Kino webisode.
They did,
as a tag
which
to
they
Time that
shouldn't
kind of
have done.
explained.
I think that's unnecessary, But I mean, for the supplemental
but it's a great
content.
artistic
Yeah,
piece.
but,
I mean, Rob was a new director late in Stargate's run, and newish, right? By the time he did Time, he had been directing for a few years. But all these like super cool stylized episodes that we got from the later years of Stargate, Time and Vegas on Stargate Atlantis,
Vegas is
Satita,
very un-Stargate, but it's cool.
Those are all Rob episodes.
Yeah, they are. And when you get to 320 some odd episodes at this point, when you create Time, you have to ask yourself, God, what have I not done yet? And if there are going to be 3 time loops, should we show the 3rd one, or can we show the 2nd one and infer the 3rd? And that's what's cool about Time. So.
Yeah, it's really well done. It was so great.
Your favorite series?
My favorite series is still Stargate SG-1.
Okay.
Because it's, it has an advantage in the fact that it ran for 10 years, but it has played such a huge part of my life. Atlantis and SGU have as well in their own way, but it's been like my entire adult life, basically, right? I started just out of college watching SG-1, and the storytelling and the humor and that cast, man, just that show is magic. Every show, all the Stargate shows are magic in their own way, but that one just has a special place in my heart.
Absolutely. It's good. You ready to introduce the guests?
And I've told you for years that my favorite episode is the 5th race. And I think I officially have to go on the record now that it's changed.
Really?
It's Lost City. Lost City is Stargate at its best. It is, there's a lot of great Stargate, but Lost City is perfect.
Perfect?
Perfect.
Yeah, okay. I'll give you that. I would pick Heroes first. before Lost City.
That's tough to watch. See, I don't go back and watch Heroes very much because it's so tough to watch. Same with Sunday.
Yeah, I don't look at an episode as my favorite, not in terms of how difficult it is to get through, but what they try to do with it. And Heroes, a lot of what this show is Heroes. It's one of the points that I want to make about what I hope to be getting out of these cast and crew is who their heroes are. I want to make this a show about heroes. Heroes, there's so much negative stuff in the world right now. I think it's important to highlight the good pieces of humanity because we get the bad all over the news right now every night. Yeah.
Heroes is almost without exception cited by cast members as their favorite episode of SG-1.
Yeah.
And I think it's because that was what they aspired to. That portrayal of the military, that portrayal of the stakes, that portrayal of sacrifice was the world that they aspired to create every single week.
Exactly. Yeah. You ready to get into our guest announcements?
Okay.
People have been waiting forever. So.
Oh man.
And
there are people watching us.
There are actually people.
You and me
now,
are
there's
just
47. A lot of those people in Europe,
we're just having a good time.
Fallen asleep in the corner and just left it playing. I don't blame you guys. I'm sorry about this, and I will get to your questions after we announce.
Well, I'm very excited to hear the guest list because
absolutely, I'm excited to give it.
Yeah, I've been calling this. This is not show 1, really. I've been calling this show 0 because
in
this
many
is
respects, I thought about labeling
kicking
it
the tires.
0. Yeah,
it's almost like you and I used to do a weekly podcast together. This is just we turned our webcams on this time and are live streaming it. The show Dial the Gate is going to be your long form conversations with some of these marvelous cast and crew that we've gotten to know so well over the years. Who's coming up?
Who's coming up? Who's coming up indeed? So let me get all my ducks in a row here. I'm still trying to figure out this system. So our first episode, and keep in mind, things may change. These talent are working again, so things may switch around. This is all tentative. You're going to want to go to dialthegate.com, which points to gateworld.net/dialthegate. But I recommend dialthegate.com. Sorry, Darren.
Bookmark it.
For all the current guests. Our first guest, barring any unforeseen issues, Mr. Christopher Judge.
Hey.
Yes. So
I'm excited.
I thought it appropriate to continue from, which is essentially a spiritual successor to Dialing Home. And didn't you have a question about Dialing Home for me? You brought it up earlier.
Well, we mentioned it earlier. I wanted to know, because you guys shot so much and have so much in the can.
11 episodes.
We got a trailer for Dialing Home season 2 that had people like Robert Picardo in it.
Yes.
I want to know if MGM's going to release any of that stuff at some point.
I don't know. I know their intent is to if you go to StargateCommand.com and you go to the frequently asked questions, it says that dialing
the home gate.
This is what happens when I'm between two worlds right now. I'm leaving Dialing Home and moving to Dial the Gate. Dialing Home and Recon and some of those other content pieces that Kieran and Jenny and I created are going to ultimately be on the Stargate Command YouTube page. They haven't posted anything in 6 months. 7 now.
Yeah, they ported over most, I don't think all of the old content.
Correct.
To the public YouTube channel.
A fraction of it. And I'm hopeful that that's a COVID thing. So we'll see.
Yeah. Hopefully they get the rest up.
I would love to see it there, because this is intended as a continuation of a lot of those. Like, I'm not going to interview Christopher again, full form. The full form was recorded in Dialing Home season 1. So we didn't get to Arc of Truth and Continuum. And that's what we're going to do with Chris.
Okay.
And we're going
so he's going to be here. Is he going to be next week? Is he going to be the next guest?
Yes. I will get to the next week's schedule at the end of the show.
Okay.
But
so your Chris conversation is going to be focused on the SG-1 movies.
Yes, and I want to talk about specific elements of Dialing Home that were really memorable to us, specific stories. So it's going to be kind of like a best of, for sure.
Nice.
Next on the list, we need to go a little bit faster than this because we have 30 guests to go through with an embarrassment of riches, is Joseph Mallozzi.
You're not announcing all of those, are you?
I am.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This is Christmas. Okay.
It is. Believe me, it's been like I've been a kid in a candy store for weeks now. Joseph Mallozzi, writer and executive producer.
Excellent.
So worked on all 3 shows. He is going to be with us for the rest of the year. About once a month. All of these guests, I might as well explain now. Pretty much everybody has agreed to 1 show. So that's okay. The first interview will be an overview interview, and every interview will have fan questions. The first interview is going to be an overview of their career, and then if they agree to do more, then we will get into the minutia. So that's the intent behind it. Joseph Mallozzi is already front loaded to get into the minutia. So, and he's one of the best to do that because he was around for most of the years. So
he was one of the minds that created this world.
So my intent for his first episode is to have an overview and also the beginnings of his being hired. And maybe we get to Window of Opportunity and Scorched Earth. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. But that's the intent with him.
Get your questions ready, everybody.
Exactly. Joe,
Window of Opportunity.
I'm so excited
Earth,
about Joe. He's
Exodus.
Giving up so much of his time to do this over it's going to work itself out to like 13, 14, 15 hours over the next 12 months.
That's amazing.
So we'll see how it goes.
Thank you, Joe. If you're watching.
My God.
Thank you in advance for giving so much of your time to this.
Next on the list. Whoops. That was the wrong transition. But anyway. Brad Ellis and Wes Walker of Wyvern Gaming. They are creating the upcoming Stargate SG-1 role-playing game. So their Kickstarter is going to be October 6th through the 29th. So for that window of time, we're going to be having some role-playing game content. So this next Sunday, not tomorrow, but the following Sunday, which is the 11th. Is it the 11th?
A week from tomorrow?
Yes,
2 weeks from tomorrow.
11th. Yeah. We're going to have an interview with them. And I'm going to take them. I've played a role-playing game, a tabletop role-playing game with them online for the Comic-Con. There will be a link to that in the episode below, along with the Gatecon 20th anniversary interview with the piece that we had with Garwin and Simone. Those links will be below. I haven't figured out how to do that yet, so please bear with me. But for the 11th, I'm interviewing Brad and Wes about what their intent is with this project and where they're going to be going with it and what fans can expect from it. And then the following weekend on the 18th at 2 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Dial the Gate, we're going to have a playtest of an actual simulated Stargate mission with the role-playing game.
Yeah, so we can watch the game being played in real time.
It's like a team going off-world and encountering a planet for the first time. And to do that...
Is it regular nerds? You going to get regular nerds on to play this for us?
I've got Alexis Cruz.
Alexis Cruz, Skara himself.
Alexis is a world-class nerd. So he's going to be joining us. He's also agreed to do interviews for Dial the Gate. So he will be joining us for the role-playing game. In addition to that, and Alexis, I can't speak highly enough of this man. He's become a friend. And you have anything you want to say about Alexis before we move on?
Alexis is a prince. I just had a chance to meet him finally at Gatecon in 2018.
Really? Okay.
I hadn't met him before, but and he's recently become a father, I heard.
His baby is so adorable.
Yeah.
So he will be joining us for the game and for future
Great.
reviews. Also joining us for the game, Simone Bailey, the Jaffa Kal-El.
Yeah.
Kal-El, not Kal-El. She's not a Kryptonian.
She's not a Kryptonian.
No.
She's Kal-El.
Kal-El, yes. Simone and I have recently gotten close. Not like close, but we've become friends. She has her own YouTube channel. She's
very engaged with the Stargate community.
Yes, exactly. So she's like, I've never done this before. I'm like, that's the point. We want people who have never done a role-playing game before to join us. So she's going to be joining us, and we're going to have her back for interviews later on in the year. So she's one of my favorites.
Good.
In addition to that, also joining us for the role-playing game, Mr. Rainbow Sun Francks.
Hey.
Din Ford.
Lieutenant Ford.
Yes. He major nerd. We're gonna have some fun with this. So and Rainbow has also agreed to do Dial the Gate God's sakes, Lord, please help me. Dial.
You named this show.
Episode. I know, man. This
you could have called it something else.
I could have.
You could have called it this
full
old
service
Chevron.
gas station for all that's worth. All right, yeah. So, so he's going to be joining us for the role playing game on the 18th, and he's going to be joining us for for interviews as well. So, next on the list.
Cool. Very cool.
Julie McNiven. Gin from Stargate Universe.
Gin from Stargate Universe.
Yes.
We've interviewed all of these folks on GateWorld at some point, but
Julie
not
before.
Julie. That's great.
So we're going to be interviewing her, and she's going to be joining us for the game.
So we're going to see most of these folks, we're going to see them in the game first.
You're going to see them in the
and
game
then
first.
Down the road, they'll be back for an interview.
Yep, exactly. And I just peeked into the live chat. Someone already called it. David Blue. He's joining us for the live game on the 18th. Mr. Eli Wallace himself.
Excellent. So cool. Nicole Penland in the chat, you called this. David Blue would probably be all about RPG as well.
Yes. So
here he is.
I can tell you he is. And I was like, we need another girl. And I was like, David? And he's like, let me call Julie. So he put me in touch. So yes, there's going to be a reunion between David Blue and Julie McNiven. And in addition to that, our 6th role-playing game guest.
Yeah.
Oh, before I do that.
There's more.
There's one more.
You already have somebody from all three shows.
I need to say this. David has not agreed to... it's not saying he has not agreed. He has yet
He's not officially booked yet.
Booked for interviews for Dial the Gate. So I'm hopeful to convince him. He's doing the game right now, so I'm over the moon about that. So
cool. Hopefully
he'll be interested in me interviewing him, because the two of us, when we sit down and we talk, it's like a house on fire. I mean, it's just two nerds. We're going way too fast. So,
well, when SGU premiered and we met Eli Wallace for the first time, I was like, that's kind of like a canon version of David.
I felt like that in so many respects. I'm not saying that they made a character for me, but they wouldn't have had to try harder. So, because I watch Eli and it's like, yeah, I say that. Yeah, I would say that in that situation.
And now you even have the camera ball.
Yes, exactly.
You have your own Kino now.
Where is it? Oh, there it is.
It's back there.
Anyway,
you'll pull it out for David on the show.
Yeah. So I'm so thrilled that Brad and Wes are taking the time to interview, and we're going to have with us for the week after that these amazing cast members: Alexis Cruz, Simone Bailey, Rainbow Sun Francks, Julie McNiven, David Blue, and Mr. David Hewlett. Rodney McKay himself will be joining us for a playtest. So he was absolutely phenomenal in the Comic-Con one. He played an Unas. And I was like, you're not going to create a scientist? He's like, no, I want to create an Unas.
He's done that already.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. So he's done. I don't know if he's going to continue the Unas character. I don't know. I'd like Simone to play a Jaffa. She's probably not going to want to play a Jaffa. You can.
Maybe.
I wanted to get Garwin so that Garwin could play a Tollan, because in the game you can play a Tollan. So
Simone would make a great Aturan.
Yeah.
The new Nox-like species.
Yeah, Aturan. Yeah, the Nox shoot off species. They're not they're not technically Nox. They're a human variant who kind of hold up the Nox and revere them.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that we're going to discuss next Sunday with Brad and Wes in terms of the game style. But yeah, Hewlett's going to be joining us, and it's going to be fantastic. Watching him play as the Unas was so funny. He got into this because when you advance through the gameplay, you have to like describe what you're doing, and he just got into this habit of rolling into every situation. Okay, before I attack this enemy, I'm going to roll into the enemy and attack them. And it's like that became his power attack. It was so ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that is.
So he's got experience. Everybody else, watch out.
So Sunday the 18th,
Hewlett's got
at 2 p.m.
experience.
Pacific time, this group of cast members is going to be joining us for a live off-world mission role play.
That's going to be epic.
Playtest thing. Yes. So. The rest are interviews that have been confirmed for the rest of the year. Schedules may change, but here we go.
But we're going to have the full schedule. Go to dialthegate.com.
Yes, the schedule of what there is a schedule, dialthegate.com. Miss Torri Higginson, I love this one. This is one of my favorite
All right,
people.
hold my applause, or can I clap for everyone?
You may. Yes, just keep it golf applause.
Torri is that first year that I visited the set before the Atlantis
Yes.
premiered. Torri was my first or second interview, probably. I remember we were outside, like sitting on the back of a truck or something, outside of stage 6, and I was interviewing Torri, and I told her my name, and she was like, "Oh, Sumner, we have a
Correct.
Colonel Sumner in our pilot."
Yes, that's
And I guess
exactly
you
right.
do?
And Andee Frizzell did the same thing with you when we met her in person. She said, "That's the first man I killed." I'm like, "Well, actually, Andee, the first man that you killed was Nethosian. He's sitting at the table." So anyway, but I don't think I did that then, but I was thinking it. So, but yeah, so Torri is joining us. I am
She's marvelous.
delighted to have her.
Love her.
She's so wonderful. The next one has become a friend of mine as well, and I couldn't start this project without him, Mr. Tom McBeath. Damn it, Harry.
Mayborn.
Yes.
Mayborn's going to be on Dial.
Mayborn is going to be on Dial the Gate. I've been in touch with him, and he's like, "I'm not good with tech." I said, "We'll make it work if I have to do it every step. If I have to send you an iPad,
I'll figure it out.
We are going to make this work." So if you have a Wi-Fi, we're good. I'll mail you an iPad if I have to.
Good.
So,
That's
yeah.
fantastic. I also at Gatecon met him for the very first time 2 years ago. So everybody, if you haven't been to Gatecon yet, come to Gatecon in 2021.
You didn't meet him then for the first time.
I didn't.
You and I were in Creation Chicago together.
Was he in Chicago?
Serialized. Yes. That was the year that you and I met for the first time and did a stage appearance. Yeah. And I had interviewed him
Well,
like
shame
a
on
year
me.
before, and he didn't remember who I was. And I
Yeah.
had taken him out to one of the parks in Vancouver. I forget what the island, Granville Island.
On Granville
and we
Island.
had gotten ice cream and everything, and he didn't remember me.
I didn't remember you. That's okay.
It was fine. He remembers
Well, clearly,
me now.
I have now forgotten having met him
Well,
in
that's the
Chicago.
thing. You know, that's why we
15
have
years
to have
ago.
this. Well, you've proven it right there. This is why we have to have this show now, because a lot of these memories are just going away.
Yeah.
You know,
All
like-
my Chicago memories from 2004, 2005, whatever year that was, are Chris Judge memories.
Exactly. Yes. No, that's the thing. But
Yeah.
we have to have this show now because these people are getting older. I mean, we've lost Carmen. We've lost Don.
Yeah.
They're gone. But I mean, Carmen, we're still going to have him in the show. I have an unaired interview with him
Yeah.
from an Atlanta convention called Gatecon, and it's going to be featured on this show. So Carmen's going to, I didn't create a plaque for him. I should have. But Carmen's going to be joining us. It's an
That's so
unreleased
great.
interview from 10 years ago.
That's so great.
And it's
Yeah.
like an hour long. So I'm delighted to have Carmen.
Never
with us.
before seen, unless you were in the room at Timegate. Nobody's ever
Exactly.
seen this.
No one's ever seen it otherwise. Yeah. He was I can't get started.
Okay, so maybe we
Anyway,
should speed this
yes.
up because I also have some trivia questions for you.
Oh, okay, got it. It's, all right. Mr. Martin Wood. If I had to pick one director, if I could only talk with one, it would probably be Martin. And then like
Yep.
Peter DeLuise and Andy Makita.
You don't have to rank them.
I
They're all
don't have
great.
to rank them.
But
No,
yeah,
you're absolutely right. Will Waring.
Martin is going to be a fantastic conversation.
Martin has agreed to a whole year of interviews.
Oh my gosh.
The man directed 60 episodes. No. How many? Chat, how many episodes? Someone check on IMDb. How many episodes he
IMDb,
directed?
I want to say it's over 70.
We're going to talk about them all. And Martin, I mean, I've interviewed him in person before. It's all there.
Yeah.
He can bring up any
Oh
episode.
yeah, he has
So this is
complete
going to be,
faculty.
It's going to be with him and with
Sanctuary as well. He could
Yes.
tell you anything about a
Yes.
Sanctuary episode by title.
With him and with Joseph Mallozzi. I mean, this is going to be fascinating. So more crew interviews, indeed, absolutely. That's one of the intents of the show, is to really highlight a lot of the crew. So Martin, thank you so much for joining us for that. We've already mentioned her before, Andee Frizzell. So Andee, we met her. Darren and I did for the first time years ago outside of a convention. We had dinner with her at Earl's, and then we interviewed her back in like a hotel lobby with
That's
terrible
right. It was the
lighting.
hotel lobby with terrible
Oh my
lighting.
God, yeah.
That was the interview where we learned about lighting.
We did, yeah.
With apologies
this
to
beautiful
Andee.
woman, we make her look like crap. So anyway, Andee will be 46 episodes. Thank you. That's it? Of all 3 shows?
No, you got to add SG1 and Atlantis.
Yeah, guys. Okay. Anyway, yes. So Andee Frizzell will be joining. She is in Thailand right now. So this episode is going to be pre-recorded. So do you have the
Okay.
form ready? Do you want to talk about the form?
Yeah, the forum is going to go live right after this stream is over. You'll be able to go to dialthegate.com, and that'll redirect you to the Dial the Gate landing page on GateWorld. That's where you're going to find the schedule of who's coming up. Schedule for next week, right? The time of day on Saturdays and Sundays is going to be changing, so check the schedule. Follow GateWorld on Twitter. Follow Dial the Gate on Twitter. We've got links to all the Dial the Gate social media there. But there's also going to be a link to a forum. You can submit questions in advance for those guests who are not going to be here live. There's you could do a live stream chat, so we could have an active chat during a live premiere.
Yes.
For a pre-recorded interview.
Yes.
But
this way,
this way,
it's pre-taped.
Folks get to use this this forum and send in questions for our pre-taped guests.
Because of the time difference in Thailand, I mean, this room is probably going to be dark when I interview her. So use that form for Andee. Andee is a pre-taped guest. The other guests, you must show up live or have a friend show up live to ask a question for you. Because the idea is to get people to show up for the live show, to ask questions and incentivize that way. This guest, as well as the next guest, are pre-recorded. Mr. Robert C. Cooper. Oh my God.
I love Rob
The
stuff.
creator of the Ancients. The creator of the replicators in the Ori. He is the one who holds all this knowledge.
Co-creator of Stargate Atlantis. Co-creator of Stargate Universe.
Right. Absolutely. So he will be pre-taped as well. His schedule is insane. So the form for the pre-asked questions, is that a thing? The form for the questions that you want to submit will be on dialthegate.com, and it will only be active for those two participants, right? There'll be a drop-down menu.
Yeah, so I can choose from the drop-down menu. Okay. I want to submit a question for Rob Cooper or a question for Andee Frizzell.
Yeah.
Or I can just send David an email.
Yeah. So everyone else is live for now. They may change their minds and want to do pre-taped. If pre-taped happens, we will add their name to that list. That'll be turned on. But for otherwise, if it is a live show, you have to be there to ask them questions in person. Rob, I can't wait. I am over the moon. It's practically like talking with Brad.
I told you recently, there was a piece of I did a long interview with Rob Cooper around the time of Stargate: The Arc of Truth, which he directed. It was his baby, his big project. We had a long form conversation. We ended up publishing it on GateWorld as a multi-part interview. You can find it now in our interviews section. But there was a piece of it that I removed. Rob and I was a theology student at the time. I was a seminary student. And Rob and I had a long conversation about religion and the religion of the Ori and how religion was portrayed on Stargate. And I snipped it out because I wanted to use it for a different piece. And then I lost it.
Oh my God.
I had a total computer failure before it was backed up. And I recently rediscovered it.
What?
I have to go back and kind of compare the bits and pieces to what we published.
It.
But I found a copy.
So excited.
So I might be able to recover that sort of lost interview with Rob. But yeah, you guys will have a chance to talk here on Dial the Gate.
That's fantastic. Good. I'll reference that content before we get started. So yeah, Rob, I'm extremely excited about. Some may have already guessed this, maybe not. Miss Sue-Ann Braun, Hathor hosts herself, will be a hostee, will be an interviewee.
She's been working so hard all year.
She has.
With Hathor hosts, and she just wrapped up her first season, I think.
Yeah, Amanda asked her questions today. She had Amanda tapping on.
Good.
So
she wrapped up her show, and she's going to be here with you.
Yes, absolutely. For interrogation. We're going to put Hathor in the hot seat. So
Good.
That's kind of cool, actually. She's going to be. She has worked so hard, and I must say, she is one of the reasons that this show is happening. It's kind of fortuitous that her season ends and mine begins. That was not set up that way.
It was good timing, yeah.
It's perfect timing. So, like, next week we'll have our first official guest. Sorry, Karen. But she demonstrated to me that this is possible to do this. And so that when I saw her program, that put me over the hump in terms of setting this thing up. So I really have a lot to thank her about. So it's perfect that we're starting our show in earnest next weekend. So yeah, so I'm really excited to have her. Mr. Neal Dennis, Ryak himself.
Neal Dennis Ryak himself. I haven't seen hide nor hair of him in years.
He is in a place called, and I'm probably going to butcher the name, Seychelles?
Seychelles. The Seychelles.
By the seashore?
I suppose so. He's been living it up in paradise.
He has a kid now.
Does he?
Full circle. Yeah.
Excellent.
He's living up in paradise with low speed internet. So
our Ryak, all grown up.
He's all grown up. I don't know how we're gonna make this work, but we're gonna make it happen.
Okay.
He may be pre-recorded.
Okay.
He and I are gonna do some tests, but I am so excited to have this young man on, because he's not a young man anymore. I mean, I'm so excited to have him. So we
talked to him in Vancouver.
We did.
When he was a young man. I don't know how old he was in that interview. Maybe 16.
He had just done. No, he was older than that. I think
17.
Around there. He had just done Sacrifices? So his last appearance. So yeah. So we're gonna have him on as well. Mr. Chevron guy, Gary Jones.
Gary Jones is coming to dial the gate.
Yes, Dial the Gate will be blessed.
Of course he is. No form of Stargate media is complete without Gary Jones. As
far as I'm concerned, I completely agree. Yeah, so we're going to have him on. And we're probably, I haven't figured out when with Gary, but yeah, I called him. I was in North Carolina on hanging out with some friends, and I was like, you know what? I wasn't going to have him in the initial guest lineup because, I'm always asking him stuff. I'm this poor man, Yeah. And yeah. So we're going to have him. I'm really excited.
Good.
So, Braytek of Chulak. Tony Amendola.
Braytek himself.
Yes.
Tony Amendola's coming.
Yep.
Tony.
I contacted Tony yesterday. And I said, so we're making this announcement. Do you want to join in? And he says, yes, absolutely. I will be there. It's that amazing voice of his. So, yes. Good. We will be having Master Braytek himself. I'm really excited to have him.
Perfect.
And then, I also called one of my New York buddies, and we had to, of course, have Mr. Jay Acavone, Charles Kowalski.
Yeah.
So Jay will be joining us as well. Jay is also one, he's like, I'm not big on the tech. I'm like, we'll make it work. I promise you, we will find a way to make it happen. So, yeah. So Jay is going to be joining us as well.
Awesome.
And it wouldn't be a Stargate Atlantis show without Carson Beckett.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm not getting the accent right at all.
You're trying.
I'm trying and I'm failing.
That's what counts.
I sound like Martin Garrow in that special feature, Road to a Dream.
Oh, yeah. That was one of the best DVD bonus features of all time.
Oh, my God.
Was Martin Garrow on Atlantis.
Yeah, him and Ivan Bartok were just crazy for that.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Paul is fantastic. If you want to get the Scottish accent right, as far as Stargate fans are concerned, all you have to say is "wee baby turtles."
Wee baby turtles. That's right. Yes.
My wee baby turtles.
Turtle timeline. # turtle timeline. All right. Catherine Powers, one of the earliest writers.
Hey, you were talking about her earlier in the show.
She's going to be joining us. Yes, she will be talking with us about a lot of those early episodes. I was not the biggest fan of episodes like Emancipation. I watched that with her.
Early
Diana
as
Botsford and I did a commentary with her. That was fascinating. And I'm like, if I can be turned around on a show like that with the writer telling me about her what she had in development for the series, I mean, anybody. So
Catherine Powers was on the main writing staff was it just season 1?
Yes, and then she was, I think, a story consultant.
Okay.
So yeah, but we're gonna.
So a lot of that early SG1 world building.
Yep.
She was.
So we're gonna have her on to talk about the world building. Exactly. We can't have a new show on without a Goa'uld. Jacqueline Samuda.
Hey, one of my favorite Goa'uld.
One of my favorite Goa'uld. Absolutely.
That's Nearty.
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to be having Jacqueline on. We had a conversation at Gatecon that was supposed to be recorded for Dialing Home, and so MGM has that. Hopefully for season 2, we'll be seeing that at some point if they release season 2. But Jacqueline will be joining us later this year as well. So I'm really excited to have her on.
My first time to Gatecon in 2018 was my first time to meet a lot of these folks who have been kind of regular convention goers for a long time, and I met Jacqueline Samuda, and I was blown away.
She's amazing.
By how terrific a person she is, but also how different she is from her character. I mean, obviously, she plays a very evil character.
I would argue one of the most evil characters in the entire show. Yeah.
Yeah, very
when you're
cunning and manipulative and. But oh my goodness, then you meet Jacqueline, and she's a bubbly Canadian girl.
Exactly. Yeah, she's very talented, and I mean, we're gonna have a good time. Mr. Garwin Sanford. Garwin and I have been talking a lot lately through the whole pandemic, and I cannot do the show without Nareem and Simon. We can't forget Simon. Garwin, we had interviewed him for season 2 of Dialing Home, and he's just one of the most salt of the earth people that you can possibly imagine. The guy is so friggin' talented. I mean, he's learning French, for crying out loud, through the whole pandemic. You know, why not? So he is a go-getter through the extreme. So yeah, so I'm really excited to have him on. Mr. Neal Acree. Now, Neal is a part of our program. He is the reason why we have the music that we do. And he's absolutely, I'm thrilled to have him with us. So not only is the musical DNA of Stargate in the show, in this particular episode, in the opening and closing credits, which I can't wait for everyone to hear the closing credits. They're fantastic. It's like Stargate music.
Yeah. He's
going to be joining us for an interview as well, and it's just going to be fantastic to have him. He is a student of Joel Goldsmith, and that's Joel right there on the Daedalus set. And so a lot of who he is and the musician that he has become, he learned from Joel. We're going to be talking about his career and the stuff that he's accomplished. I mean, if you're a fan of World of Warcraft, Diablo, his music is there. He's done every World of Warcraft cinematic since the Burning Crusade. They're all on YouTube. You got to check them out. They are awesome. And you can feel the musical grammar of Stargate, like kind of beneath the surface. Maybe I'm just hearing things, but I can't wait to have Neal on.
Yeah, that's fantastic. He's so talented.
He is. Colin Cunningham, Major Paul Davis.
Major Davis?
What happened?
Major Davis.
What is happening here? They took the ship. Q's in there. He's living in Utah now. He was a part of the mass exodus from New York. So we're going to be talking with him, and I love this man. So really excited to have him on.
He's so talented. He can fill up a character. He can become anyone or anything. Did you ever watch Falling Skies on TNT?
No, I couldn't get into it.
The Noah Wyle show. Yeah, he was off the wall, chewing the scenery. Amazing character.
He ate the stage,
in Pope. Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to.
Yeah, great character. The exact opposite of Major Davis.
To watch, I'll certainly watch some of his stuff from it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you should watch his short film Centigrade. It's my only to this day Apple purchase. Centigrade. It was I think it was like your first purchase is free, and so Centigrade is the only thing that's in there. Go and check it out. It is fantastic. 15 minutes.
Good.
We can't start our show without a Cylon.
That's a different show.
Oh, sorry.
This is a Stargate thing.
I would not say that this will be easy, but if you want to be free, Jafar, you must have Kitano.
Rick Worthy. Yes.
Absolutely. I love this guy.
Kitano from Stargate SG-1.
We were at... Right.
You recognize him from Battlestar Galactica. He was one of the Cylons. You recognize him if you watch The Magicians on Sci-Fi Channel.
I've seen it.
He's Dean Fogg.
Dean
Fabulous
Fogg?
character.
Dean like a name or Dean like a title?
He's the dean of the college, so that's his title. Henry, I think, is his first name. Henry Fogg.
Okay. No, his first name is Rick.
Fantastic character on a great show. But if you don't recognize him from Stargate, he was not really a Jaffa, was he? No. When he appeared in season 5.
Spoil it. Hell, it's years old.
The show's been around for a while.
Right. Rick Worthy will be joining us.
Awesome.
I'm so excited. I also want to talk about Battlestar and one of my favorite shows, Man in the High Castle. And he was a robot in Star Trek Voyager. So we're going to bring that up. Dr. Janet Fraser. Terrell Rothery.
Hey, everybody. Terrell Rothery's coming to Dial the Gate.
Start this show without Terrell Rothery. Yeah, so I'm really delighted to have her on this. So, she's never watched Heroes.
I think I heard her say that at a convention, and it does not surprise me.
I would love to have her do a Heroes commentary. I would love that. But I'm not going to push her.
That'd be tough.
That's a sensitive thing. I don't want
to
her
put her
watch
on camera.
Not to watch it for us with the first time. I want her to go and watch it first. But can you imagine getting to sit down and watch that episode with Janet Terrell herself? I mean, I'd love to get her and Michael. My God, Michael and Saul and Terrell make those 3 episodes happen. They all do. Not to diminish Christopher, Amanda, Rick, anyone else, but
there's wall to wall great performances in those 2 hours.
Yeah. So that's just, I can't wait to have her on. A little bit more Atlantis for you.
Yeah, give me some more. Joe Flanagan, I've heard of that guy.
Yes, I've heard of him as well. Yes, and his hair. So Major John Shepard will be joining us. Colonel John Shepard, probably a general by now.
Major, then Lieutenant Colonel.
Then Lieutenant Colonel, then full Colonel.
And his hair.
And him and his hair will be joining us. Yes.
Good.
And his ears. Oh, remember the elf lady? Anyway, so that's a fandom reference.
I have not gone to a Stargate convention yet where Joe's ears have not been mentioned by someone.
Oh my gosh, that's the truth. Yes. So Mr. Flanagan will be joining us soon. I've already have him scheduled in, so he's coming up shortly, and
excellent. He'll be coming up soon.
Yes.
Good.
I'll have that at the end of this. Moving on. Amanda Tapping. So she just did her show with Sue-Ann today.
Yep.
And yes, so that's the plan is to have her as well. I am so tremendously excited to have Amanda on.
She's an all-star. She is the queen.
She is. No, yeah, she's sci-fi royalty. And
she's all we need. We don't even need you.
Well, love
Just
is
put
all
her
you
on
need.
camera. Well, I love Amanda.
You really can't.
And I love Samantha Garter.
I do. I love
Sam is still my favorite character.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot to talk about with her. The world has really evolved in interesting ways, and I have a lot to talk about with her as a director and as a human being. And I'd love to know who her personal heroes are.
Yeah.
Every one of these people are going to be asked that question. Who are your heroes? Who are the people who made you? Why are you the person that you are? What are the building blocks that made you the performer that you are and the human being that you are? And so Amanda's going to do that. I cannot tell you how excited I am about this next guest. So let's just roll the tape.
Stargate fans, I'm Dean Devlin, the producer and co-writer of the original Stargate, the movie. I wanted to let you all know that I will be joining David Reed on October 17th at 2 p.m. on his new show, Dial the Gate.
Dean Devlin.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Co-writer and producer of Stargate the movie. He's going to sit down and talk with us.
One of the creators of Stargate.
Mm-hmm. He's booked.
We've been doing this for 21 years.
Yeah.
And we've never talked to Dean Devlin or Roland Emmerich before.
I bumped into him at WonderCon in Anaheim when he was shooting Bad Samaritan, when he was doing the publicity rounds for Bad Samaritan. And I said, you have no idea how much I appreciate your work and what it's done to the trajectory of my life. And he said, you want to sit down and talk? We'll talk. And I reached out to his agent and said, is he still game? And she said, yeah, he'll do it. And so he recorded this message, and I'm blown away.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you, Dean. And Roland Emmerich will also be coming on, but Roland cannot be involved right now. He's too busy working on another project. So it's a gentleman's agreement that Roland will be.
We hope to book him. He's not booked. We hope to book him.
Yes, but Roland is he's the other co-writer and the director of the Stargate.
And the director of Stargate.
So yes, he's not a hard yes. So not enough for me to make a tile for him. But
we're working on him. Good.
We're working on him. So I'm really excited about that.
So much lives inside Dean Devlin's head in terms of the origins of Stargate.
I want to know what he was wanting to do.
And what he wanted to do with the franchise.
Dude, why are there 9 chevrons? Why? You know?
I got all kinds of questions.
Did they just
Oh,
look
yeah.
better?
I got
Were
all kinds of
chevrons on
production
Stargate?
questions.
Or were you doing something with them? Did
We
the
gotta
Stargate-
brainstorm for that.
Did the Stargate go to more than one place? What was
Yeah.
your intent? So I don't know
Yeah.
how much of it.
How close are the Bill McKay books to their original
Exactly
intent?
right. You know,
I
Are
don't
they
think they're the
based on
same
his-
thing. I don't think they're an
I don't think so
adaptation.
either. So I cannot describe how excited I am about this interview.
Okay, this is
over
my
the
question.
moon.
You asked the 9 chevron question. My question would be, if they had 6 chevrons that they could dial, and Catherine says this is as far as we've ever been able to get,
Never to get.
why didn't they just try each of the other symbols in turn?
Well, I'm not gonna like poke holes at his film. You know, I mean, there are some story issues
Yeah.
with that movie. You know,
Yeah.
that are.
I have
just-
some headcanon reasons for explaining
okay.
that.
Well, then we need to articulate to that one another off camera.
Yeah.
So before I go on and because I'm not gonna grill this man and say, this is really.
Yeah.
This doesn't work, Dean.
Yeah.
It's a movie. It's a
No.
summer blockbuster.
No, I don't have to grill him about plot holes in his 25-year-old
right, exactly.
movie.
No, exactly. So, last but not least, I ran into this person at Comic-Con in 2008, and I've been carrying their business card in my pocket. Okay, it's been in my fire safe for 12 years now.
Okay.
And I was like, if I'm ever going to
I
call
hope their
in-
phone number didn't change.
Exactly. And the web address that was on there, it didn't work. It was gone. And I was like, oh God, please God, let this work. And I'll just show it to you. Sam Jones, Eris Bach.
Oh, Eris Bach.
The only guest
Another one we've
star
never talked to.
We've never talked to. The only guest star who has ever had a comic book made for him that did not turn into a main character later. Because I know Vala had some.
Yep. He just has one episode.
One episode.
And it's a
he's one
fan
of the
favorite,
most
Dead Man
memorable
Switch.
Characters of all time. It's an amazing performance. Just so witty, and so that's it, folks. So Eris Bach, Sam
Incredible.
Jones, he's busy right now. We will have him in January, so we won't have him this year. So the intent is to bring him in January. So that's the plan there.
That's amazing.
That's all I got.
Boy, you've been working hard on this, I know, for a couple of months, getting all this ready to spill to us. And I knew some of these secrets, but I'm blown away at this initial lineup for just the first 3 months or so.
Dude, I don't know. This was probably way too much. But it was.
But you've taken on a big project,
Like Cliff
yeah.
Simon. I'm pretty close with Cliff, and I've not asked Cliff yet. And I intend to. But it was like I need people that I have talked to, and I need people that I've never spoken to before to strike a balance there.
It's a good balance.
And it's like, where do I draw that line? And there's a number of actors that we've communicated with before that are not in this guest list yet that hopefully will be. I reached out to Ming. Ming's just finished with Mulan. All the publicity for Mulan. She can't do it. And Ming has always been wanting to go for an interview. So hopefully
the time will be
next
right.
year. The timing has to be right. So exactly. So that's my list. So.
Boy, that's amazing. This is going to be an event.
Exactly.
This is going to be an event. You're working hard, and I'm going to be here. Even though I'm not going to be on the show, I'm going to be tuning in live as much as I can.
Yes.
But then folks can also watch the shows after the fact. They'll
Yes.
be archived and available on right here on the Dial the Gate YouTube channel.
Yes.
Everybody subscribe before you leave if you're not
And it's
subscribed
very
yet.
important. I cannot describe how important it is. If you're on YouTube all the time, you get the message all the time. But please hit that like button if you like what we're doing. Because YouTube's algorithm is designed so that once the like button is triggered, it increases the likelihood of other Stargate fans watching the content. That's the only way that we're getting this out. I'm not doing any advertising for this show. This is all word of mouth. That's the intent behind it. I don't have the money for that. So if you want more of this content, please consider hitting that like button so that we can grow this audience, because that's how it's going to have to happen.
We're so grateful for everybody who showed up today, but we're also excited for the support. We're grateful for the support of other Stargate fans because, we don't have a show yet. We don't have a new Stargate series. No. We're waiting for some kind of an announcement from MGM as to what's going to be next for the franchise. And, Stargate Command has also been closed now for coming up on a year. So the fact that fans have this is new. content for us to log in every weekend and enjoy. I think it's a gift to the fans that you are doing this and that you're using your talents this way, and that it's available, as you said at the top. It's going to be available to the whole world.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm going to get to your fan questions in just a second. Darren and I are going to do a quick round of trivia, though. So, all right.
I'm ready.
Me or you first?
I'm going to do my best to stump you, but I got to say, well, number one, you've always been better at this than me.
Yeah, but well, I mean, you've had a chance to think up some questions, so I mean.
Yeah, but also some of this is a little rusty for me.
Okay.
I would have done a lot better at this 5 or 10 years ago than today.
Well, then you ask me first.
So let's see. You asked me to pull together an easy question, a medium question, and a hard question.
Yes.
So I'm going to start easy.
Okay.
And we'll work our way up. Everybody in the chat, play along at home. This question comes from Stargate Universe.
Okay.
In which episode does TJ begin an attempt to amputate Matthew Scott's arm?
It's the dream episode.
Title of the episode. Give the chat a second. Look like you're thinking really hard, even though you already know it.
Episode names? No.
Give them a second.
The episode names are gone for me. A lot of the episode names are gone. He and Chloe are on an off-world planet where killer plants from Sequest DSV are attacking them. So I don't remember the name of the show. That's right. Yeah. Cloverdale. That's it. Thank you.
Cloverdale. Good job, Z's.
I don't know the name of the episode.
Good job, chat.
So, yeah.
Cloverdale, season 2, episode 5.
Yeah. I remembered the episode, but I didn't remember its name. Okay. Next. Jeez, if that's an easy one, I'm in trouble.
Well, do you have easy, medium, and hard?
I do.
Okay, ask me the easy one next.
Okay.
We'll go back and forth.
Okay. In SG-1's Nemesis, when Teal'c is in the pressure chamber in his spacesuit, Jack invites Teal'c to say something. What does Teal'c say?
What does Teal'c say? He's in the spacesuit. I'm trying to remember if this is before he goes outside.
He's in the pressure chamber. So
he's in the pressure chamber.
Listen to my words.
In the airlock.
In the pressure chamber in the spacesuit, Jack invites Teal'c to say something.
I'm thinking of other similar scenes.
I really hope you're not in the chat because they're just blowing it.
Oh, I'm not looking at the chat.
Come on, guys. Wait until he's answered it.
One small step for Jafar.
Luann! You're buying dinner next time, Luann.
I'm not looking at the chat.
Okay, I know, but still.
Did you hear my answer?
No.
One small step for Jafar.
Yes, that's it. 0-1. Your serve.
Oh, my. Boy, if that was the easy one, this is not going to get pretty. Here's a medium difficulty question. This one comes from, on paper. We'll see how your brain works. This one comes from Stargate Atlantis.
Okay.
One of my, that first year I got to go to the sets for SG-1 in Atlantis. I also got to meet some of the cast of another MGM show called Dead Like Me.
Right.
And they were having a photo shoot, and I got to go and interview some of those cast members during their shoot. And I met Laura Harris, who I love.
Yes.
I'm not going to ask you the name of the episode.
Is she the blonde?
Laura Harris. She's the blonde.
The Game.
Laura Harris puts in an appearance in The Game in season 3.
Yes.
Name the 2 countries that were at war on the planet M4D058. This might be harder than I thought it was.
Futura and Terrania.
Okay, name one of the countries. Name one of the countries that was at war in The Game. This is not very easy.
Yeah, this is a medium question. I think I want to shoot myself for the hard one.
A hard one might be easier for you than this.
I want to say Futura, but I mean, that's SGU. I don't remember them. God, I used to know.
Help us out.
They already. Oh, Geldar.
Geldar.
Caledonia.
Is correct. No.
Caledonia. That sounds like
Caledonia's from
That sounds like
Jonas's planet, isn't it?
No, Caledonia is from Icon, I think.
Oh, from Ethan and Icon?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Geldar and Halona.
Halona?
Halona. Summer has the name right here.
Oh, for Pete's sake. Yeah, okay. All right.
This high fastball off the plate. I thought you were gonna be going after these a little bit harder.
I can give like details like I'm not asking you for proper nouns. Maybe that's the
Okay.
key. So number 2, medium. According to the Stargate Omnipedia, that one thing that I started off on that you forgot that I started off on. Lucius
I
Lavin.
remember.
Lucius Lavin is a resident
Lucius
of a
Lavin.
planet in the Pegasus galaxy, with specialties in baking, herbs and spices, and what?
Baking herbs and the other specialty
Baking,
of the planet?
comma, herbs and spices, comma, and what? And I'm going to help with this one.
Okay, I'm going to leave my wisecrack in the vault and see if I can come up with the actual episode. We were on set for this episode.
We sure were. Yeah. The opening scene of the episode when they first go into the village. And
Yeah,
then
when
the scene
Lucius
where
first
they're all
walks
at
up.
the table. Well, get the such and such. We haven't even started the second course, you know.
I'm going to have to straight up guess unless you're
I'm
passing
prepared
out
to get more
hints.
information. So what does he give as gifts?
This episode is Irresistible, early season
Irresistible.
3. My
Season
confession to you in the world of fandom is I've watched this episode exactly one time. So I'm going to say, yeah, there's a handful. This is one of them. I'm going to say Fine Wines.
Shoving candles into gourds.
I was definitely not going to come up with that one. Shoving candles into gourds.
So one,
Good.
1-1. The score is 1-1.
Okay.
All right.
You ready for a hard question?
Yes.
This is from a television show called Stargate SG-1.
I think I've heard of it.
Actress Jillian Barber played the Colonan ambassador, Draylock, later appointed First Minister of Jonas Quinn's home planet. But that wasn't her first role on the show. What episode did Jillian Barber previously appear in? And for bonus points, what role did she play? You said come up with a hard one.
Is it the gamekeeper?
It is the Gamekeeper. Who did she play in the Gamekeeper?
Tell us about what it's like outside. I don't know what you call those people under the drapes.
That's got to be right. Yeah, it's she's credited as a resident.
Residents.
Number 1.
The residents. Do
She's
not
a
interfere
resident
with
of-
our residents.
She's a resident of Barclay's VR world.
So I get the hard one. How crazy is that? All right. Well, I'll ask one for you.
All right, I'll remember proper nouns next time. That's where you struggle.
Yeah, well, I mean, no. I mean, I need to know this. I'm rewatching the show, obviously, if I have any sense. So, final question, hard question.
Okay.
In SGU's Incursion Part 2, Destiny comes out of FTL near a binary pulsar. What is the pulsar emitting?
What is the pulsar emitting?
Yes. What is the pulsar
Pulses?
pulsing?
Radiation?
Can
we get more specific than
gamma
radiation?
Gamma radiation is one of the two. What is the other? It's sending out two things into space.
Gamma radiation and recipe for Mama Russia's hot chili.
God's sakes, come on.
I don't know. All I remember is the radiation that burned the Lucian Alliance guys to a
Correct.
crisp.
It was gamma radiation, and you get these when you go to the dentist every 6 months or a year. Or when you get a broken bone.
Fluoride. It was sending out fluoride. Is the correct answer.
X-rays. Smart ass.
X-rays. Gamma radiation, and that is a hard question. Now I don't feel bad about
I thought
asking
it was
about
originally
Geldar and
microwaves.
Halona.
Like, I was thinking about the question. I was like, what is the pulsar sending? I thought it was microwaves. Because you watch a Lucian cast member get cooked. No.
Yeah.
So...
I apparently was not paying close enough attention because I thought that was just the gamma radiation cooking.
Exactly.
Shows you what I know.
No, it's all good.
With my humanities degree.
An interesting fact about that episode. They have
Summer says, but Nintendos go through everything.
Nintendos do go through everything. That's right. An interesting fact about that episode. They posited that there was a potential pulsar out there in the universe that had those characteristics of like orbiting every 22 minutes or whatever it is, but it wasn't found. You know, it's like this theoretical. Within the last few years, a pulsar has been discovered out in the universe that demonstrates these characteristics.
Cool.
So Stargate did it first.
Very cool.
Yeah, and we bring this up in the Gatecon retrospective, which again will be linked below. So,
yeah, and of course the whole science of the cosmic microwave background radiation. That's based on actual science.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So, well, thank you for playing. So,
thank you.
Very good.
We did okay.
So, trivia.
Both of us got at least one right.
Exactly. Trivia for you out there in the interwebs. Is the form ready?
The form is not ready.
I haven't
the
seen it
form will
yet.
be ready for people to submit their trivia questions to you and your special guest. It'll be ready sometime this week.
Okay. So not every guest and I will play trivia questions. Like Joe Flanagan and I, we're not going to play trivia. We don't have that kind of relationship.
Okay.
Joe Flanagan. Joseph Mallozzi probably will. But I want to invite everyone to submit trivia questions to us through the form that Darren is going to build. You can email them to Dial the Gate. God help me. dialthegate@gmail.com. But I wouldn't, though, because then I'm going to see them. These trivia questions are for the guests to ask me.
Yeah, so we're going to set up a form
Right.
that sends it to you in a way that you can't see the question. And then
I will forward it to
your
them
helper,
or to their agent. Yes.
Yeah, you'll kind of collate this and it'll go to them. So they will have the question that fans submitted and be able to ask you right here.
Yes. So
cool.
The first thing that I'm going to ask for people is to submit the trivia questions via the form at dialthegate.com when Darren decides to post it up. Every month, there's going to be new artwork there. And at the end of the month, that artwork is going to be given away to the person who submitted the best 3 trivia questions, easy, medium, and hard,
Nice.
to the show. This month, this is Ken Rebel's initial concept artwork.
Holy smokes.
Of the Beliskner. The print of this will be given to the person who submits the best interview questions for the month of October.
Tell me more about this piece. This doesn't look like the final ship.
Well,
is this
the
concept art
wasn't designed yet.
This is concept art from the show. This is not fan art.
Yes, correct. This is concept art. Ken Rebel, may he rest in peace. He created this. So,
Wow.
I will be mailing this print anywhere in the world to people who ask, who go to the trouble of submitting the questions to us.
Cool.
And the best 3 questions by a person will be best. So will be the one that I do. That's not the only one. I'm also sending you this one. So this is concept art for Into the Fire.
Oh, wow.
When they pull away the back of the
Hathor's fake Stargate command.
right, exactly. When they're removing the doors behind the Stargate, that's actually a production thing. There's a space back there for the camera to go. But in this episode, there was a green screen, and this is what was behind that. So these 2 pieces of artwork will be going to the person who submits the best 3 trivia questions. And you're going to want to do it in the form, so do it properly so that I don't see the questions beforehand.
Yeah.
I am on the lookout for
That's incredible.
a couple of producers' assistants. If you're interested, send me a message at dialthegateshow@gmail.com because I need help organizing these questions, and there are other things in the works for the channel as well. So
yeah, this is going to grow. I was telling you before we started, Dial the Gate is going to build its own community. Yeah. And the folks who showed up here on day one, I think, are the foundation of this new community that we're building.
Yes. So
for Dial the
for
Gate
being here for episode 0. Episode 1, technically, but yeah.
Thanks for being here. But but you're going to be looking for production help and chat moderators as we get more and more people here for the live streams, stuff like that.
Yep, exactly. So fans have been itching to ask us questions, so I'm going to run through these real quick, okay? For you and me.
Okay.
So Sam Carter asked, and thank you, Summer, for moderating. I really appreciate you. You have no idea. I'm also needing moderators. Please dialthegateshow@gmail.com if you're interested. So you'll get first dibs on questions for guests, let me tell you. So there's a whole schedule coming up that we just need help with. Sam Carter asks, is this like Hathor Hosts? Yes. I haven't seen all of Hathor Hosts. I've seen just a few of them, but essentially, yes, that's what this is. So
it's you and a guest in a long form conversation with a live stream with a chat. Sue Ann really kind of demonstrated the proof of concept.
She did it. Exactly.
Yeah.
She was the one who pushed me over the edge and said, yeah, absolutely. Raj, is Stargate returning? Vaunted mantra.
What do you think?
Well, Joe said 5 chevrons locked, didn't he?
That's the last thing that we've heard and that we've reported on GateWorld, and we've got a video about this on our GateWorld YouTube channel. Joe Mallozzi is in conversation, obviously, with Brad Wright. They're friends, and the last thing we heard from Joe is somebody asked him how close are we to a new show, and he told him 5 chevrons locked. So that's close. It's not there yet. It's not ready to be announced.
I'm hopeful. Yeah.
But Brad's working on something.
Absolutely.
So in the era of COVID, there's extra hurdles that need to be hurdled before we get it. But I remain the eternal optimist. I think we're going to get a new Stargate.
I really do. Well, if Brad's, talking with MGM, it's music to my ears. So, absolutely. So, let's see here. Raj, I wanted to know why there are no models of the ships. I think that's just a licensing thing. If a modeling company approaches MGM, with an offer, it's MGM's decision to extend the license or not. So I do know that those of you in the 3D printing community are full bore on a lot of this stuff, and there are people out there like Chris Baker who, doing some really great stuff. Exquisite pieces. The paint is coming off because it's hotter than hell here, and it's 50 C in the summer, 120 F this summer, and so the house gets up to like 85 degrees while I'm gone, and some of the paint is transferred off the bottom of that Daedalus. Anyway,
and we featured some of that fan-made 3D printed Stargate stuff on GateWorld. Gate Builder, my boy Martin, has put together some amazing stuff that we've been able to feature.
Wow, that's legit.
I have pieces. I'm again ashamed to admit that I haven't assembled it yet, but he sent me pieces of the power thing.
The power
Naquita generator.
An Naquita generator.
He 3D printed a Naquita generator, and it's gorgeous.
And he sent it to you.
Yeah, and he set it up Darren. So that you can put a little power brick inside of it and use it to charge your phone.
Wow. I mean, you've only had 2 months to prepare for the show. I mean, it's all right. You can get around to it someday.
No, I've had the model longer than that.
Okay. Summer. Yeah, Summer, I know. All right. I hope they finally meet the Furlings. Yeah, me too.
Me too.
They were not koalas. They were not giant koalas. That was not a thing.
Nope.
So... let me see here. Raj always wanted to know if the ancients seeded the Andromeda galaxy with stargates. Maybe there should be a series in there called Stargate Andromeda. I wouldn't be surprised. So
it's a close galaxy, and it's a name that's familiar.
Diana Botsford and I've never talked about this publicly. She's probably going to kill me.
Yeah, don't say too much.
About Stargate Oblivion?
Don't say too much. There's a project.
There was a project.
There's an idea.
There is an idea called Stargate Oblivion. And it was what we were trying to do. What are you doing?
I'm trying to get this out because I want to ask you if you've listened to this yet.
Yes. Can I go on?
I wasn't going to interrupt. I was just fumbling with my box.
Yes.
And then you asked me about it. So this is what was in it.
That's funny. Yeah. No, it's really good. It's a really good score. But Diana Botsford, her father Ward wrote an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, and she's written a couple of Stargate novels. And I approached her at a convention about this idea that I had called Stargate Oblivion, and it was a 6-part book series. That is the idea is Starfleet Corps of Engineers, and we presented it to Fandemonium, and we went back and forth like a year, and it never came to anything. And I'm hopeful that one of these days we'll be able to do something. I'm not going to go into that any further.
Yeah, don't go into it any further. Yeah. I hope it happens someday because I think Stargate, Fandemonium does such a fantastic job with the novels. I would love to see a self-contained series with new characters in a new setting, like the Star Trek franchise has done, that just lives in novel form. I'd love to see that.
Yes, they wanted everything to focus on the team because team stuff sells better, and this didn't. This was going to be, I mean, it was going to have guest appearances, but yeah, that's where we stalled. So maybe we'll come back to that. Let's see here, Raj. Okay. Murla? I am so sorry. I'm not going to be able to say that last name without absolutely butchering it with a spatula. Mirella, are the replicators all extinct? Technically, but I don't think so. I mean, they are. Which replicators are we talking about? Which generation? So I think season 8 threads definitively, possibly ended them. But I mean, not all of them necessarily had to have come forth when the Asgard triggered Reese's subroutine.
It was all replicators everywhere.
Yeah.
But the device on Dakara that eventually wiped out the replicators, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that connected to every Stargate in the Milky Way galaxy. So if there were other replicators hanging out in other galaxies who did not come forth when they got the call, then theoretically they exist somewhere.
Exactly. Another one from Raj. Which do you think was built first, Atlantis or Vis Uban? That's a good question. I don't know.
A good question.
Because Vis Uban was supposedly the last one on the list. I think Atlantis would have to predate Vis Uban, because Atlantis was in the Milky Way longer, and Vis Uban was like one of their last projects. So I don't think that Atlantis is as old as Proclus, but I think that it's definitely up there. But Destiny is older, as plausible. Brad Wright just told us earlier. So yeah, it's
people who are watching wondering what Vis Uban is. It's the ancient remains of an old civilization, an old city from Fallen, the premiere of season 7 of SG1.
Yes,
and it gets wonky with the ancient timeline because there's all the stuff they did in the Milky Way before Atlantis went to Pegasus, and then there's all the stuff that they did after the evacuation 10,000 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're making up the mythology as you go for 14 years. It's pretty sound in my opinion, but yeah, there's going to be some holes. But yeah, no, that's
some of those possible. I don't know how to date, like the time loop device, that civilization and window of opportunity. I'm not sure.
They're ancient, yeah, but that's just before the plague happened.
Yeah, so the hint that we get is they were suffering from the plague. That's why they did this, and so it would seem to be plausible that was before Atlantis left.
Right, exactly. Corporal Hicks 23. Have they ever talked about doing more origins or shorts? Christopher Judge wanted to do a Jaffa story, like. I think it was like Young Braytak. I'm not entirely sure. It may not have been that at all. I'm not sure where that was going to go. I still know that I know that he wants to do something. And when he comes on, we're going to ask him about that. A second season Origins was on the table for a really long time. When I was at MGM, we took over a boardroom, and Jenny and Kieran and I put 60 sticky notes on the wall of
60 different ideas
of plot threads from Stargate. Everything from Erisbach and young Jack O'Neill to the oh hell, what are they called? The obelisk race that's apparently the most powerful force in all of Stargate.
Oh, from SGU, yeah.
The star system builders. Oh man, I would love that explored. So and the Nakai and the Ursini and everything else. So yeah, the fish people, Nakai. Fish like people.
And the veneer.
Sam Carter, how long will these Dial the Gate interviews be? Well,
not as long as this one.
Not as long as this one, that's for sure. I'm not going to.
This is two old friends who haven't talked to each other for a while. So
I apologize for the length, folks. I imagine a lot of people are like, I can't stick around. I gotta go.
Thanks. Thanks for everybody for sticking around.
An hour and a half, 90 minutes is the intent. So when we really get into the weeds of
for each guest,
guests back repeatedly and going systematically through the work that is Stargate. An hour with me and half an hour with the fans in the chat. That's the structure.
Good.
So, I mean, I have to have set up and everything else. So it's like 50 minutes with Talent and me, and then afterward. So come with questions ready to go.
So what I also want to say to people as you're nearing the schedule here is there are some days where you're going to have one guest, like today, it's just me. And there are some days where you're going to have multiple guests. But those two guests are not necessarily scheduled back to back. So there might be a live stream at noon Pacific time and then another one later in the day.
Yes, they're not going to be consistent. You have to go to dialthegate.com, especially like the day before.
So watch the schedules. Right. Yeah, watch for the announcements. Those were two guests that are probably not going to be back to back.
Right.
So it's effectively two shows in the same day.
Joseph Mallozzi, I mean, I scheduled him for like the second for the day because just in case he has like more time to talk with the fans, because he's really good about communicating with the fans. So the second episode in the day may go over, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see how it goes. But the intent is 90 minutes, but some of them may run a little long. That's the nice thing about this is it doesn't matter as long as the guest is willing to. I'm willing to sit. I can adjust in my chair and everything else, and my tailbone's starting to hurt a little bit, but that's okay. So that's the intent. I'm so sorry, guys. Ian Zainia, and I need my glasses. I can't find them. Ian Zainia. Darren, obviously when you started GateWorld, it was just one site. When and how did it become the Stargate resource?
Well, it still is just one site. It's just grown and evolved over the years. We came up with new things that we wanted to do. And so the challenge was continuing to do the old stuff, the episode guide and news coverage and interviews, and then add on new pieces. So when David joined in 2003, I've been reminded, with the Omnipedia, it was a new project, right? I had in mind I wanted to do an online encyclopedia of everything Stargate, but I didn't have the resources to do it. And so David and his genius brain came along, and suddenly we could do it. We wanted to do a screen cap gallery, and we decided to put our shoulder to it, and we went out and recruited a whole bunch of fans to help us with all the DVD screen capturing, and we did it. We wanted to do a video project. We did it. We wanted to do a podcast in 2009. It was just kind of one piece at a time, adding on to what we had, and fortunately people liked it. Fortunately people liked the content that we've been doing for 2 decades, and they keep coming back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the fans are the thing, because if they don't provide that click through, then there'll be no reason to continue. So, which is why it's so important to share this. The other point that I wanted to make about the schedule changes, they're going to happen all the time. So I really recommend that you click the bell icon if you're subscribed for the show, because I'm trying to figure out, there's a lot of shows that I watch when there's a schedule change, they send a text out to everyone in the subscribe list. So they message everyone, and I don't know how to do that. And I've Googled it, and all the Google and YouTube videos are outdated.
You're talking about YouTube alerts?
YouTube alerts. Yeah. Do you know how to do it? The ones that you can, it sends out a text. And I've checked on Googled, I've YouTubed all the videos. All the
Folks
videos,
will get a notice.
Yeah, they're all outdated. It's not configured the same way anymore.
Yeah, so you have to subscribe to the channel. If you're subscribed to the channel, you're going to get stuff recommended to you more often. And when you visit YouTube, Dial the Gate is going to show up for you. But you have to also ring the bell, right? Click on the bell icon to turn on notifications. And if I've turned on notifications for Dial the Gate, then my phone's going to buzz when Dial the Gate goes live, or when Dial the Gate publishes a new video. I'll get an instant notification.
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you for that.
It really does help. It's a great way to support any content creator that you like their stuff. Click on the like button, make sure you're subscribed to their channel, enable notifications, and then watch their content when it goes up. Those are the sorts of things that the YouTube algorithm looks at and decides, hey, people are interested in this. maybe the algorithm should recommend it to more people.
Exactly. It's a vast system.
Which is what we want for growing Dial the Gate.
Yep. Tony Richards, 93. What's the latest on Stargate these days? Anything progressed, or are we still awaiting news? We discussed that earlier in the show.
We're awaiting news. We think something's going to happen.
Pattern.
Most all production is in a holding pattern with COVID, but we think something's going to come down the pipe. Now we've been saying that for a couple of years now, because something's been in development for a couple of years now, and it takes time for it to happen. It's the business.
Sarah Lupe, SCU, Lupescu? Lupe? Sarah, just joined the live show, just wondering if the Superfan channel is still a thing or has it disbanded. Well, I know at least one of them is in the room right now. Hello, Marcia.
Oh, who's here? Hi, Marcia.
Marcia Middleton. I don't know what's going on with that. That's an MGM thing. They originally, the plan was for them to be changed up every year. And then instead we got changed out. We got our marching papers at the end of the year. It's like, well, all right then. I don't know. I doubt it though. The superfans would probably have more information than I would. So hit up Marcia Middleton. Very good. Brazat. Hey buddy. Hi. Well, there's another one right there. Brazat. There's another superfan. Brazat.
Brazat.
Right, exactly. SG1 and SGA and SGU trivia questions. Can we contribute at all? Asked and answered. So yes. So there will be the form at Dial.
After this stream is over.
Right. Dialthegate.com.
Dialthegate.com doesn't work right now, but after the stream is over, it'll be opened up and you can submit questions.
Yeah. Give Darren a chance to
trivia.
To straighten everything out. Also, he has to load all of because I don't have access right now, so he's going to have to load all the new guests that I introduced. So it's going to take a little while. And at the end of this, you'll also see who's scheduled for next week. There's 5 scheduled for next Saturday and Sunday.
5?
Well, one's a two.
5 guests.
One's a twofer.
One's a twofer.
Yeah. Whew. My glasses. Will you be doing anything on Stargate Day, which is Wednesday, October the 28th? I didn't have any plans. What do you think?
I hadn't planned anything this year. It's not a big anniversary. Last year was the big anniversary. Yeah. Last year was 25 years since the movie.
That's right.
Dropped.
I don't know. We'll have to see. So we may, Dean Devlin, we may have to do so. Stargate. That's when the film premiered, right? October the 28th.
Yeah, the film in 1994. Depending on how soon you get Dean on, you could bake him a cake.
Right.
And just make him look at it through Zoom.
My God, can you imagine? Dean, I baked you this.
Mail
it tastes
him.
Good.
Mail him some cupcakes.
Master Sheet. When do I have him on? Because he already mentioned when he was on. October the 17th at 2 p.m. So you know what? I will ask him to do something. We'll see. We'll figure it out. It may just be a clip from his live stream that we posted on October the 28th.
Hey, by the way, have you listened to this?
Yes, I have. Thank you. Anyway, moving on. One of the things I want to point out is that the channel is going to be full of clips from these particular episodes, because not everyone wants to sit down for 3 hours like Darren and I and you lovely people are willing to do. So, and I enjoy, like Joe Rogan, I love his podcast, and the best thing I like about it are the clips, because it takes 10, 11, 12 minutes of the episode and highlights it. So you're going to be seeing those as well. And I've designed the imagery so that it looks different from episode imagery. So you can, as you're scrolling, you can tell at a glance. And also, please, for the love of Pete, use the playlist feature. I just discovered this thing. It's awesome. So you can go in and categorize between clips, between interviews, between commentary if we have them eventually, things like that. So
for the love of Pete Shanahan?
Yes, exactly.
Because a lot of people don't love Pete, I gotta say.
Well, I love Pete. You know, the rest of them, they can go fly a kite. Sam Carter, will the interviews always be on Saturdays, or will the days vary as well? Right now, Saturdays and Sundays. So I'm not opposed to doing one on the weekdays, but that's where it's at right now. So, and I missed one by Claire, 10 p.m. UK time. Will you do it any earlier at all? I work late. the night before. I'm out until 3 or 4 in the morning. As you're about to see, Joe Flanagan's going to be at noon Pacific time. That's the earliest I can go. So I really am sorry. That's the problem with the global audience, you know. At the very least,
Yeah,
the
that's
show
good,
isn't
though.
on just 7 countries. So yeah, I have to figure it out somewhere.
I learned from living in the UK for 3 years. I learned that daylight savings time is on a different schedule in the UK.
Yeah.
So our daylight savings time in the States ends, I think, later. So we're currently 7 hours apart. It's going to go back to 8 for a couple of weeks. I don't know. Somebody look it up. But 12 o'clock, depending on what week it's on, 12 noon Pacific, should be 7 o'clock in London.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. So yeah. So one of the Arizona doesn't change our clocks. So Pacific time 12 o'clock will soon become Pacific time 1 o'clock, which means I will be able to do an hour later, which means that we can start at 11 o'clock Pacific time without me like busting my butt.
David's trying. With apologies to our
I
Aussie
need my
and
sleep.
Kiwi friends.
Yeah, I feel so
David's,
bad for them. Yeah.
Trying to schedule early Pacific time so that our friends in Europe have not gone to bed yet.
Yep. Summer, I think I've answered them all. So if you want to wipe those away, and I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up. If we get any stragglers, I'll do my best. But Darren, I really appreciate having you on, and I think that that this is going to be great.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me be your first guest to help you kind of kick the tires and learn the streaming tech a little bit.
Tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
Yeah, I had a good time. I always have a good time talking to you. And we're going to have more chances to connect with the Stargate community, with the GateWorld community, and build the new Dial of the Gate community from here. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for this work, not just for today, but for the work that you're going to be doing for all of us over the next months.
Absolutely. I do appreciate you taking the time. So you take care of yourself, and I'll be talking with you really soon.
Will do.
So Darren Sumner, creator and owner of GateWorld.net. Summers, when is the Kickstarter if you wanted to address that? So the Kickstarter for the Stargate SG-1 role-playing game, the date that I was given, if I can find it here, is going to be, and I just read it off earlier and it's gone now, October 6th through the 29th. So is going to be the Kickstarter. So that's going to be really cool. And to have the Stargate guests join us for next Sunday for the role play, for the gameplay, I can't tell you enough how cool that's going to be to actually experience that with you guys. So I want to show you an idea of what the segments are going to be like before, or the episode types are going to be like before I make the guest announcements. So let me see here. All right. So briefing room is what we just did. And why is it not playing for me? Okay, it's not going to play. I don't know what I did wrong. All right, so the different... Sorry, guys. Welcome to episode 1. Briefing room is the show that you just watched. It is not a typical interview series. It is... briefing room is going to be when we have Darren on and when we have news announcements. Please, a 4th Stargate series will go there. We'll have... It's our news channel, briefing room is. Then we have interviews. And interviews are going to be the meat of the shows. Those are going to be like every episode pretty much that we have is going to be in the interview category. So additionally to that, and this is this is still early, fandom. We're going to have a fandom segment as well. I'm going to invite people to come on in pre-recorded segments and talk about why they love Stargate, how it has affected their lives. Summer in our chat will probably be the first. I want her to come on. Stargate has helped her out medically in many ways. She's the only person I know who is actually prescribed Stargate by her for her doctor. So because it actually helped her in her situation, and so her story is a tremendously cool story. So we're gonna have her on as the start of that. And if you think that you would be good to be featured in a segment, contact me at dialthegateshow@gmail.com. And we're going to start organizing those. But this won't be for a few months still. So I want to bring that up to critical mass. Our social channels on Facebook, Instagram. You know what? Let me get into that in a second. Off the Grid, a random episode. Like if Dean Devlin wants to come back and do, you know, a chat about Independence Day, that would be where Off the Grid goes. So it deliberately echoes the episode title from Stargate SG-1. And so those are them. So Briefing Room, Interviews, Fandom, and Off the Grid. Eventually, hopefully, we're going to add commentary next year. We have to build an audience first. So I'm not going to bring guests on like Martin Wood and Amanda Tapping and Richard Dean Anderson to watch Solitudes live with y'all and then take questions until we have a few people to watch with. But that's the intent. I want you to know where we're going with that. And that's pretty much it for that. So artwork. I am so thrilled that we have Stargate Fan Art and Stargate's fans in the community who are willing to share their art with us. So this is created by a fan artist by the name of Hito. She is a huge Stargate fan, and I saw this on Facebook years ago, and I've been hanging on to it. And as you do. And then I posted this and said, who's the artist? I know it says Hito, but I mean, does anyone have Hito's contact information? Because I would have loved for permission to post this. And she got, I managed to get in touch with her. I love this piece. And it's just, I want to feature more things like this as we move forward. So if you want to submit your Stargate art to us, you can do so at dialthegateshow@gmail.com. You're going to need to be prepared to provide me with a paragraph of why you created this piece and what it means to you and what your intent was in communicating it. And also keep in mind, the artwork will be posted on our Instagram account after the show airs. So we have a Facebook account, we have an Instagram account, and we have a Twitter account as well. So let me discuss that once again before we go, because that's pretty important here. So if you like what you've seen in the episode, and I apologize my stumbling all over myself here because I'm still getting used to this, I would really appreciate it if you click the like button, because it makes a difference with YouTube's algorithm and will definitely help with the show and growing its audience. Please also consider sharing this video with a Stargate friend, and if you want to get notified about future episodes, click the subscribe icon. If you plan to watch live, I recommend giving the bell icon a click so you'll be the first to know of any schedule changes, which will probably happen all the time. Bear in mind as well, clips from this live show will be released over the course of the next several days on both the Dial the Gate and GateWorld.net YouTube channels. Now, the clips are designed for people who don't have time to sit through an entire show, so that's what that intent is. I think that's all I have, and I really appreciate you guys joining me for this first show. I didn't expect the audience that we managed to get. Thank you so much to Summer. One last shout out. One last before I let you go. I have an amazing, absolutely amazing animator by the name of Brice Ors. He's designed the animations that you've seen so far. I've done a few of the live ones, but I mean, the intro, and some of this content that you've not even seen yet. This man is absolutely amazing, and his name is Brice Ors. He's French. He's a part of the Stargate network. They created the interactive, it is a video game, but it's not. It's kind of like a walkthrough of SGC and Abydos and a few other planets as well. He is absolutely brilliant, and he has been helping us to create a lot of the bells and whistles that you've been seeing in the show. The backgrounds are his. The intro is his. The logo design is by Debbie Bell, old Stargate fan of mine and Stargate friend of mine and Stargate fan. So thank you, Debbie, for the title design. And thank you again, Neal, for the music. This is the part of the show that I've been looking forward to the most, which is to share next week's guests with you. So here we go. So Christopher Judge is going to be joining us Saturday, October the 10th at 1 p.m. Pacific time. That's 4 p.m. Eastern. That is subject to change. So do bear that in mind to check out dialthegate.com before, at the very least the day before for the current schedule. Joseph Mallozzi will be later on that day, Saturday, October the 10th at 3 p.m. Pacific time. That's 6 p.m. Eastern. For Sunday, we have Mr. Joe Flanagan. October the 11th at 12 noon. And he will be joining us as well. I haven't talked with Colonel Shepard in a while, so it's going to be good to talk with him again. And then later on that day, the Wyvern Gaming team, Brad and Wes at Wyvern, they're going to be talking to us at 2 o'clock Pacific time about the Stargate SG-1 role-playing game that's in development, and the Kickstarter that's going to be happening October the 6th to the 29th. So that is currently next week's schedule. So if it changes, dialthegate.com will have all that information. And that's all I've got for you. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you so much for making this thing become whatever it's going to be. If you have trivia questions, I hope you're willing to submit them through the form that Darren's going to be posting. And that's all I've got for you guys. Neal Acree composed the end music to our program, and I cannot imagine doing this show without him. It has meant so much to me that he is a part of this process. And so I'm going to let Neal take it away. I appreciate you joining us. Sorry about the length of time. We'll make it shorter next time, and see you on the other side.